like to call the meeting to order. This is the special public meeting, yes, because it's not on our regular schedule. So it's our regular meeting, but moved to a different night, September 9th, and call the meeting to order at 5:31. Karen, do we have any adjustments to the agenda?
Not that I'm aware of. I might add one or two items to my town manager's report.
Okay, sounds good. So next would be approval of minutes from the August 25th meeting. I'll have copies of those.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of the August 25th, 2021 meeting.
And I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the August 25th, 2021 meeting. If there's no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, next we would have warrants.
Make a motion to approve and execute the warrants to the treasurer as presented upon completion of review.
And I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve and execute the minutes, the warrants to the treasurer for, well, Karen will go through the dates upon completion of review. So Karen, if you want to go ahead and review them, we have two, one for payroll and one for accounts payable.
So payroll warrant dated September 10th, 2021 in the amount of $21,884.02. Standard employees, we did add one person to the library. She's part-time.
And does that reflect, Karen, I'm assuming there are still lifeguards, but this will be probably the last payroll that will have lifeguards?
That is correct.
I'm good.
You all set, Eileen?
Yeah, I'm all set.
I'm good.
Okay, so if you want to move on to the accounts payable.
Accounts payable dated August 28th through September 10th, 2021 in the amount of, hang on a minute, $1,329,753.78. This first payment to Wyndham Southeast School District is in there for $1,200,000. And you'll see Zaluzny Excavating, $75,701 for riprap material from the storm. And everything else is standard. So if we take the 1.2 million and the 75,701, our accounts payable is roughly $54,052.78.
Roughly, that's not roughly. That sounds exactly.
Give or take.
To the penny.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's exactly.
Okay. And the excavating, the storm damage, presumably, are we getting reimbursed for that
Yeah.
to some degree?
The state hasn't declared an emergency yet, so we're still waiting.
Still waiting.
But
Are we expecting them to, or is there, we don't even know?
well, they're working on it. That's all I can say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think, yes, we are expecting them, but that doesn't guarantee it.
Right.
So,
Right. I don't know where the threshold is yet. Still haven't seen the inventory for damage in Putney. So they're still gathering information. I spoke to somebody last week looking for budget numbers for the town of Putney. So I'm not quite sure. I know there was an extension because of the other storms we had, Fred
Yeah, exactly.
and Henri and then Ida.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're still waiting.
Yeah. And that Zaluzny bill, I can't remember because I know I saw a bill. Is that a second bill from Zaluzny Excavating?
That is the first one.
It is? Okay,
Yes,
because I think we're still taking material from
We
their
are.
pit, correct?
Yeah,
So
we've been-
so there will be, I mean, the trucks have been running very steadily, moving material to get
They're running gravel too,
Right, exactly.
not all
Oh,
gravel.
our gravel as
Yes,
well. Okay.
yeah.
All right. And I do just want to say, I think we said this at the last meeting, but thank you so much to all the local contractors, et cetera,
Yep.
that were involved in the process. I mean, our roads are in remarkable condition considering what happened, whatever it
We
was
still
now,
have
5
a
weeks
ways to
ago.
go, but
Amazing. Yes, but they're, it's very noticeable to me as you drive around. Every time I go somewhere, there's another road that's been redone, which is great. So thank you.
One question, I think I remember from Tom, the last meeting at the fire station, if we do get, reimbursed from FEMA, they cover contractors and they cover overtime for our workers, but they don't cover the materials from our pit, is that right?
That is,
That's
I
okay.
believe that's correct. No,
No.
we can bill for the material.
Yeah,
That's
Can't
right.
go. Okay,
Yes.
all right, I
Yeah.
wanted to get
Yeah.
that straight, okay,
Yeah.
good.
No, and I mean, my impression of why we are still bringing gravel from elsewhere in
Yeah.
this situation is that we have a finite supply.
Got it.
So
Yes.
given that it's an unusual circumstance,
Right.
we want to stay focused on using our material for regular maintenance and try, and hey, in a pinch, obviously it's there for us, which is
Right.
great. But if other gravel is available, that makes sense for us. So, all right. So it has been moved and seconded to approve the warrants, execute and approve the warrants to the treasurer. Upon completion of review, we have completed review. If there are no further questions and no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, good, thank you. All right, so next would be public comment on items not on the agenda.
Josh, I'd like to make a comment.
Please.
I just wanted to give a shout out to Alicia Dana for
Yes.
her extraordinary representation of Putney during the 2021 Paralympic Games.
Yeah.
Thank you, yes, definitely.
Well done, Patty,
Yeah,
well done.
amazing. Yeah, proud of you. Excellent. Thank you. Do we have any other comments on?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Fairman.
2 brief points. First, I regularly walk the roads in Mount Pleasant Cemetery, and I'd like to mention that I think the people cutting the grass and trimming around the stones are doing an excellent job.
Good, thank you.
thank you.
And secondly, do I understand correctly that this meeting was postponed from yesterday due to conflict with a religious holiday?
I would say that's part of the equation. I think that
It was
there were a number of people who requested that it be moved because they would like to participate and they would have been unable to participate yesterday for religious purposes. So I would say it was less about moving it because it was a religious holiday and more about moving it because there were a number of requests from people who were hoping we would be willing to do that. And given one of our topics today, we thought that made sense, so.
Thank you for the clarification, Mr. Chairman.
Certainly. Any other, let's see, I see John Field, you have your hand up.
Hi, this might come under business later in the meeting, but there are 2 documents that are mentioned in subcommittee meetings from July 2nd and September 2nd. And one refers to a letter from Mr. Fairman, and I don't see on the website where that letter is. And the second is, there was a meeting February 24th where the minutes mentioned that there was an attached letter that was read by one of the select board members, and that is not attached to the minutes as it says it is. So is there some way that the public can access those 2 documents?
I'm sure there is that how about we let Karen answer that?
I'm gonna try because Alyssa's not here. So I know Mr. Fairman's letter is on the website. It's either under Selectboard or Equity and Inclusion, perhaps. As far as the February one, I don't have an answer for that.
What was?
Yeah, the minutes record that, that it was attached. Whoever read that letter said, so-and-so read a letter, comma, attached, but there's no attachment.
Well, there was one letter that got subsequently taken down. I'm not sure if that was the same meeting.
I wouldn't think so, no.
I don't know.
We had to
Different.
review the minutes, I mean.
Yeah, John, can you say that date again so that we can make sure we find that and see what we come up with?
It's February 24th, and then I guess I'll be in touch with Karen about finding Mr. Fairman's letter.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it's on there somewhere, 'cause
Which date was that?
that wasn't too long ago.
That was.
And what was the date of that, John, for Mr. Fairman's letter?
It's referenced, that letter is referenced in the draft minutes of the Equity and Inclusion Subcommittee meeting of July 2nd. There was much discussion, according to the minutes, on July 2nd, but I don't see the letter, just discussion about the letter.
Okay. Thank you. We will just follow up with Karen and we will make sure, we will do our best to make sure those are available. I'm sure they are
Thank you.
somewhere. Yep.
Thank you.
All right. So any other public comment on items not on the agenda? I don't see any other raised hands. All right. So we will move on to the town manager's report, which we have under a separate sheet in our information. Karen, all you.
Sure. So quickly, remembrance of 9/11. So it's 20 years this Saturday. And so 2,996 people were killed that day. There were citizens of 78 countries who died in New York, Washington, and Pennsylvania. Of that number, 2,763 died at the World Trade Center, including 343 firefighters and paramedics, 23 New York City police officers, and 37 Port Authority police officers. At the Pentagon, 189 people were killed, including 64 on American Airlines Flight 77. On Flight 93, 44 people died when the plane crash landed in Pennsylvania. On December 18, 2001, Congress approved naming September 11th Patriot Day to commemorate the anniversary of the 9/11 attacks. In 2009, Congress named September 11th the National Day of Service and Remembrance. Patriot Day serves as a reminder of the lives lost on September 11th, 2001. 20 years this Saturday.
Thank you.
I know there's a lot of kids out there turning 20 this year
Yeah.
who lost parents, one or both, grandparents. So I think we should all just reflect a little bit and remember.
I would also say, just to express gratitude for all of those. We're obviously coming to the end of a very complicated period since then on the political world stage politically, and just gratitude for all those that have served and worked to try and keep this country safe and try and make the world a safer place. So thank you.
Road conditions. So Cemetery Road and River Road update is the state came back with the hydraulic reports. I posted this on Facebook. Cemetery Road will be a pipe culvert, and the town highway department will do that work. River Road will be a box culvert, and that will go out to bid. I've drafted up a proposal for Brian to review. We'll try to get that out by next week. We'd like to see that road completed before the end of the year. So fingers crossed.
And just for people who don't know, we often refer to box culverts, and most of you now who drive the back roads have probably seen them, and or the main roads. They're the big square concrete poured. They're not really like a culvert, but they're called box culverts, but they're more like precast concrete bridge sections, really.
Sand Hill is like a box culvert.
Yeah, there's a lot of them around
Right.
town now. It's what they've gone to.
Yeah.
They're much more durable. They're heavier. They last. I don't know how long, but a very long time compared to
Right.
culverts. So that's what the state is largely changing larger waterways to.
Yeah. So Leon Wood Road, Aiken Road, Corey Hill, they recently had some work done to them. There's still a little more to do. And Houghton Brook, Signal Pine, Windmill Hill, Brook Road, Tavern Hill, Putney Mountain. They all had gravel on them recently, which is a good thing. So when the riprap went down, then the gravel goes on top to make it a smoother base. But without the riprap, we would lose the road again to a big storm like we just did. Gravel will be going on Aiken and Leon Wood Road, probably within the next week. I know High-Low Biddy Road is gonna be graded as well with some gravel. Most of the mailboxes that the post office wasn't delivering to have been taken care of. So people are getting their mail. If you're still not getting your mail, please call me and I will send the crew over to take care of it. Houghton Brook Road, we've gotten several phone calls about flat or punctured tires from storm repair. The riprap, it's unfortunate. I guess Houghton Brook, there's quite a few people that ended up with flat tires. I called Rod's Mobile. They had about 20 tires that they actually repaired, but I have taken phone calls from people that have had to put like 2 brand new tires on their cars because they couldn't be fixed.
And will our insurance cover that for people, or is that not?
That's a question I was gonna ask the select board. Have you ever experienced this? I know with cracked windshields, we'll send a claim to our insurance company.
I haven't before, but I'm aware just anecdotally of at least 2 people who have experienced it. And I don't believe that it's actually the riprap. On Houghton Brook Road, at least one of the incidents that I'm aware of was when they had come back and they had added additional material, and then they were sort of longer, thinner actual stones that were puncturing into the tires, and those are not typically repairable.
Right.
So, and I don't know whether I think it might warrant a phone call to our insurance company.
Sure.
I don't know. I just saw the safety and wellness report from Brattleboro, and there was a whole bunch of reports of punctured tires from potholes, and I got the impression that they were from private citizens complaining to the town.
Right.
I don't know if Brattleboro then reimbursed them or not.
I know Jefferson too last year had the same problem, so I can call the town.
This is a different nature than potholes, and I don't know whether that would make any difference or not. But
Right.
The material we're putting down on the roads that's causing a problem.
it would appear to be.
Yeah.
And it might be hard to show that, but again, sort of
Right.
anecdotally, it does
Right.
appear that that's the case.
Well, the
So,
timing, it's
Right.
yeah,
So I'll look into that a little more.
thank you.
But we're getting to the point where we're in better shape with the roads.
And they top dress ultimately with a gravel that I
Yes.
think must come from our pit. That's a
It's
finer and
finer,
more crushed
yeah.
and sandier.
It's
Yeah.
It's got some gravel in it, but not
It's
the
it's
big
also got a
stuff.
sandier,
Yes,
sort of more like a background gravel.
yeah. I've seen posts regarding signage, road closed and or detour for River Road. I spoke to Brian about this. People are saying there's a lot of traffic down on River Road North. And if a road closed sign was put at East Putney Falls right there, you know, it would stop people from going down there. Well, the road's not closed there. And it's unfortunate, and I've asked him about a detour sign at, you know, the corner of Route 5 and River Road, directing people down to East Putney Falls. You put a detour sign there, and then anybody trying to go to college are gonna think that entire road is, you know, you can't get there. So, I'm not quite sure. I thought about maybe a, local traffic only or through traffic only, you know, we don't have a sign like that. But I'm willing to call Brattleboro to see if they have one. We just don't carry signs like that, so.
Yeah.
It may cause more confusion,
Yeah.
and I don't really know the right approach. And most people live in Putney and they know.
So it's people that are people who aren't local that are trying to go down that road to go where? To the college
that's
or?
the question.
Well, and here's the thing too, so somebody said, well, people coming south get to River Road and then they gotta go all the way back to East Putney Falls to get to the north side of River Road. And I'm like, well, if it were me, I would have just taken the left right there onto East Putney Falls anyway, but I mean, the road's been closed. I can try to post something on Vermont Alert where everybody will get a message.
Yeah, I mean, people from other places, if they're getting directions to something, like Google often has
Right,
they have
yes,
an alert.
right, right.
I don't know if they have done that for that road.
So just to be clear, this isn't an issue with people turning right off of Putney Falls Road and heading south and coming up against the closed road. This is people heading north on River Road from the end of Falls Road.
No,
I
they're
think it's
trying to
both.
go.
Okay.
Yeah,
Probably a little bit,
yeah.
yeah, a little
They're
bit.
trying to go both, and you know.
So do we have a sign on the southbound right there at the corner of the east end of East Putney Falls Road and River Road saying that the road is closed ahead that way?
No,
We don't.
That might be, yeah.
Yeah,
Road
because,
closed ahead sounds the most logical.
you know, I mean,
right.
who would be going that way really who doesn't live there? I mean, what's the attraction? But it might be good to have
I
something.
mean, I know people go there to walk their dogs and things like that, but I had the impression that those were mostly local folks.
And they're probably happy that the road's
Right.
closed,
Right,
because
exactly.
there's more space for walking their dog.
Well, there's a lot of activity down there right now. So, but I do have the sheriff monitoring that too.
Okay, well.
So, I'll try to
Keep
come up
thinking
with
about
something
it.
with
Yeah.
Brian.
Yeah.
So, we'll do our best to figure it out. Hazard mitigation plan public hearing status, we had that. There wasn't a large attendance, but Brian and I need to meet with Alyssa Sabetto and give her some more information. Once we do that, then I'll update the board, but that's moving forward. Budget discussions for fiscal year 2023. So I've given department heads, a blank budget to go and give me an update so we can start working on that. So I'm hoping by October, the board will be involved in budget talks. And I will warn you right now, expect to have extra meetings on our off weeks. And we're gonna get the public involved as well. Audit status is in progress, so early November. We're still uploading data to the accountant, but it's pretty much there.
And they have already done their site visit work here, or did they not even do that anymore?
No, they haven't been
Really?
down, but they might come down in November.
To follow up on some
Yes,
stuff?
yeah.
Okay.
And then we'll have them come to the meeting like we did last year. Hounding on Putney Mountain Resolve. In your packets, I gave you information that Ann Carey shared with me. Thank you, Ann. So a total of 711 individuals and organizations offered input to the Putney Mountain Refuge. And of those submissions, 473 came from Vermont residents, 45 from New Hampshire, 7 from other states, and 186 unknown. Of the responses received, there were 3 main categories of comments: alignment with state regulations, opposition of the use of lead ammunition, opposition to the use of hounds. And the comments, many commenters expressed concerns about impact hounds would have to other user groups, including people observing wildlife, hiking, walking, and birding within the Putney Mountain unit. Commenters also expressed concerns about hounds trespassing onto adjacent private property. Concerns included harassment by hounds to other users and their pets, and harassment by hounds to livestock, pets, and children on adjacent private properties. So the response: upon further evaluation, we have determined that hunting with hounds is not compatible at Putney Mountain Unit due to the size of the tract. Putney Mountain Unit is a 285 acres. Keeping hounds within the unit boundaries is not practical, and trespassing onto private lands will likely occur, causing conflict between hunters and neighboring property owners. To avoid these conflicts, we will allow the use of dogs only for hunting of ruffed grouse. So I spoke to Steve Aegis, and he's with the state, and the select board's letter had a lot of weight. So
That's good to know.
Yeah, no, and thanks to everybody who brought that to our attention, and,
Yes.
you know, I mean,
And helped us write it.
it certainly, yeah,
Right.
and it certainly hadn't come to my attention previous to that, and I'm glad it did, because clearly it seems to have helped, so,
Right.
thank you.
And I wouldn't have thought to put it on there, but through
Yep.
Facebook, I had seen the posts, and I talked to Ann Curry, and
Yeah.
so there it is.
Good.
Good job. Landmark College Makerspace Innovation Lab Project. I've been meeting with Tamara Sten at Landmark, and Peter Eden's given them the yellow flag to move on this project. Her class is looking to do an assessment to see about incubator businesses that could be housed somewhere in Putney. And they're looking at technical jobs. And we're going to Springfield tomorrow to look at a project up there. So it mirrors the Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation on Cotton Mill Hill.
Yeah.
And Brattleboro's expanding with different ideas, same concept. So I'm in this a little bit with Landmark to see where it might go, but it could create more economic development in Putney. And I'm hoping the other private schools might get on board with Landmark. And this could be something substantial, so I think we need to pursue it a little bit and encourage them to, explore it. And I want to thank Landmark too, because they've reached out, since I've been town manager, they've reached out to me several times with different projects.
Yeah.
So supporting, the community like that, I think is a good thing.
Yeah,
Excellent.
thank you.
That's great.
And I'll keep you posted. ARPA funding money for Putney, we just got another payment. And then I did a little more digging. So we just received a payment of $238,541.57. And earlier we had received $128,556.56. So the town of Putney will get a total of $734,196.25 from ARPA funding. And we will all have to figure out how to use that money.
And have any criteria come down?
Yeah, there was criteria that I had sent in previous meetings, but
I think you told me that before.
it's okay.
There's,
Yeah, there's
It's a laundry
specific.
list.
I mean,
Definitely.
actually delved into it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just so everyone knows, the state of Vermont actually received $179,959,943.20.
roughly.
No,
Right.
that's to the
Exactly.
penny. So that's how much money came into the state of Vermont through ARPA, American Rescue.
Right.
So,
It's also, I mean, certainly since we started these conversations, that number is significantly larger than
Yes.
what we initially
Right.
thought. So,
So
so,
we 200 and some odd,
Exactly.
700 and some.
yeah,
Yeah.
so we're really gonna have to put some serious, well,
yes,
we're gonna have to do some serious outreach to see
right.
what the consensus is.
Yeah.
How do we wanna
And we
work
have
with
2
that? So,
years
Which,
to use the money.
Goes by quickly.
that's,
will.
yeah,
Yeah, so we need to
Definitely.
be thinking about how
Yeah.
we're gonna address this now.
sooner rather than
Right.
later. Yeah.
Where can we find the parameters for how that money can be used?
It's on the internet,
Okay.
just look it up, and, I get emails, so,
Yeah.
but,
It's largely for sort of long-term,
planning.
infrastructure and community development type
Right,
work is the concept behind it. So, and what, that's broad, but there are definitely specific criteria as well. So,
Could it be earmarked towards budgeting for increased coverage of sheriffs or state troopers, like?
no, but we can use it if we have like, a deficit in our budget, caused by COVID,
Okay,
but we're still trying to get the bottom line on that.
okay.
So, yeah, in the next few months,
Gotta
we'll
read that.
do a
Start
survey
to
or
go.
something,
Yeah.
Yeah,
get some
some
input.
elder housing maybe, project.
Um,
I'm
So-
gonna need it.
One last item, oh no, sorry, I'm adding Summer Matters grant. So the spending ends September 15th, and then we have to have the grant to the state by the 30th. So I'm working on that right now.
and we have expended all the funds, we just need to reconcile that.
We haven't expended all of it, there's like $4,800, but we can reallocate money.
We can, okay.
So we're thinking we might reallocate it for lifeguard salaries.
Sounds good.
So we will spend every cent of that.
In time and get the paperwork in.
Yeah, yep. Robberies, break-ins, home invasions in Putney. So we did have a home invasion. The person was at the house, state police did respond. And then we had a bicycle and a car stolen out of someone's driveway. There's a lot of stuff going on in Putney, so people have to be vigilant, lock your doors. If you have security cameras, make sure they're operational. But I also have Sheriff Mark Anderson on the line here. And if he wants to speak up, he can. But there is a lot going on.
2 cars on Old Depot Road were also ransacked and money was stolen from the cars over the same period of time.
Yeah. Is he still there?
Sheriff, you want to comment?
Good evening. I didn't hear the comment from the member of the public, but if it was a question for me, I'm happy to answer it.
No, it was just pointing out that also 2 cars on, I believe, Old Depot Road apparently had been also gone through and items taken.
Yeah, so thank you for the opportunity to speak. Good evening, everyone. For those who don't know me, Mark Anderson, Wyndham County Sheriff. My office currently provides 40 hours each week to the town of Putney, as well as 40 hours each week to the town of Westminster. And so through a collaboration between the 2 towns, we are there Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to roughly 10 p.m. With some some flexibility around that. But anyways, because of the relationship we have with the state police, there's some sharing of resources that goes into coverage for the town of Putney. And so to the point, there will be state police response when my department is not on duty in the town of Putney. If we are sharing the resource between the towns of Putney and Westminster, if we're on in Westminster and an incident occurs in Putney, we'll respond from Westminster. So just as a bit of foundational explanation there. There have been some reports of burglaries in the town of Putney. All of those have been handled by the Vermont State Police. In this most recent outbreak, we are working with the state police and are engaged in a variety of proactive as well as just basic awareness strategies as we work to support the town and the victims of the crime. Because they are state police investigation, I won't comment on any of the specific incidents since I do not have permission from them. However, I will speak broadly with regards to basic crime prevention. This is something that we usually do anytime burglaries do begin. First off, we do advise people lock your doors. It's a simple step, but at the end of the day, there's a reason we repeat it frequently. We find that in burglary investigations, doors weren't locked, vehicles weren't locked, keys were left in vehicles. Just a variety of very low-hanging fruit things that a resident can do to help make their property harder to gain access to. We also recommend people lock windows. It's still warm enough that air conditioners are installed in windows. We encourage people to make it so that you can't remove the air conditioner from the window. That can be done either by installing hardware in the window casing. It could be putting a stick between the window and the upper sash or lower sash just to physically prevent it from opening more. But a variety of strategies around that. I mentioned keys in vehicles. Unfortunately, people in Vermont do feel safe leaving their keys in the ignition, and people do open up car doors. They will look for change, and if they see car keys in the ignition, sometimes they will also take it. There's also a reality that crimes of opportunity are usually the most common. So what I'm talking about right now is basically take an opportunity to minimize your exposure, if you will, so that you're not seen as a target. By no means do I suggest this as blaming anybody who was a victim of these crimes. It does happen. You can go through these steps and still be a victim of these crimes. We work tirelessly to identify evidence, DNA. If possible, we will fingerprint scenes if it makes sense. But all of those things also do take time for us to be able to process through the crime lab. I am aware the state police are involved in this investigation. I would defer the questions about those specific investigations to them, since my office is not currently responsible for those. Speaking about cameras, a lot of people do have cameras. They can be the Ring doorbell cameras. They can be closed circuit TV systems. There are many very affordable systems that are out there, anywhere from $20 upwards of thousands of dollars. But all of those are helpful, especially to our investigations. Vehicles, people near the scene, they might not even be connected to the incident itself, but they may have some sort of evidence that might be able to help us. So certainly, if you have those systems, please check them. Give a call to either my office or the state police if you do find something of interest, or something that you're not sure if it's of interest, because sometimes we might have a piece of a puzzle that you don't have that makes it all the world. A few years ago, we had a burglary ring happening in the tri-state region, which we were able to solve because of one cigarette butt found on the ground. I mean, that's what it came down to, and that solved about half a dozen cases. So sometimes it's the smallest of things that can stick out in these investigations that make all the world. Also, just speaking about cameras, I mean, we've had some other incidents in Putney over the last I guess, year and a half, where we learned that cameras weren't present in places that we thought they were, or they weren't focused in a way. And I saw it was a later agenda item, but I'm going to take a little liberty, if the chair will allow, to mention the vandalism that occurred in the town on Old Depot Road. Right now, it is an active investigation for us. We have not closed it. We do not have any leads of who did it. This is unfortunately an uncommon reality in vandalism cases. Not a lot of people see what happened. It's a very quick occurring act. And those acts, when gone unnoticed by any witnesses, not captured on cameras, they are hard for us to identify suspects immediately. It doesn't mean that we can't. We do leave these investigations open and active, though they might not ever be solved. There's an unfortunate reality to that. We would prefer to solve them. It's not a lack of interest from us. It's just, unfortunately, the nature of the equation. So I guess I've spoken a lot. I'm not sure if there's questions or comments or any specifics I can get into.
Thank you, Mark. Sheriff Anderson.
If you could just, I think I would be correct in correcting you to say that vandalism was the vandalism that occurred on Carroll Brown Way, not on Old Depot Road. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. I apologize. My brain is a little tired tonight.
That's okay. I'm wondering, unrelated to that, but I have also heard about many catalytic converters having been stolen, and any details on that people should be aware of?
Yeah, so that's another trend that has been occurring around southern Vermont. In fact, it's occurred all around Vermont. It is a well-known issue that law enforcement is actively working on across the state, to the point that we've involved federal partners, specifically the FBI, because while it might be 3 cars from the town of Putney that have a catalytic converter stolen, I'm saying that as a made-up number, not quoting a statistic, but 3 cars from Putney stolen. It could be 3 cars from Westminster and 3 cars from Dummerston and 30 cars from Brattleboro, and those all go to a precious metal dealer who then sells it to someone on a black market. And so ultimately this turns into hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars very quickly, and that's where we get that federal partners' interest. So these thefts are occurring statewide. This is not unique to southern Vermont. We encourage vigilance. Again, everything I spoke about with cameras, they are valuable. Lights are valuable. We have identified several people who have been involved in the trade of catalytic converters. Proving the cases is nuanced. It doesn't mean that we can't solve the cases. However, it is nuanced as we try to work to identify the tools used and the connection to the people that we find in possession of the stolen property. The stolen property also moves quickly, so if just making up a story here, if I were to steal a catalytic converter, I sell it to the chair sells it to the town manager moves it over to the clerk, and very quickly we now have 4 people who have had possession of stolen property, but only 1 person was involved in actually taking the property. So this is not atypical to the types of cases that we're working. And while we can find the person holding the property, it also comes back to stopping the problem itself. So yes, we're aware. We encourage vigilance. Listen for odd noises. The saws aren't quiet. Generally speaking, metal doesn't cut quietly. Generally speaking, torches don't operate blindly. So they are opportunities that people can look out for themselves, look out for their neighbors, pay attention to strange vehicles in the area, and most importantly, report them. Going back to the vandalism that occurred on Carroll Brown Way, we actually never received a call, not a single call to my department about that vandalism, except from the town manager. And we learned about that after she received a call from a member of the community. So for us not to be aware, it means that we're already behind the 8 ball when we're trying to act.
Can I ask you a question, Sheriff Anderson?
Yes, sir.
Sorry, I should probably start my bit. This is Alon Moses. I'm wondering, does the department or the state, as far as you're aware of, have a protocol for, you're saying you weren't aware of it. I'm just wondering if it had been one of your officers who had seen the sign, what the protocol is. If the state has protocol, if your department has protocol when they see vandalism, that could be possibly, not definitively, but let's say just even possibly could be called a hate crime vandalism. Does the department or the state have any protocols regarding such marks on public property?
So a couple things. One is does the state have a protocol? I believe so. I'm not sure what it is. It used to be that they would replace vandalism when it occurred on state property. That changed back in 2020, and I wouldn't dare try to quote what the current status of it is right now. Certainly the Agency of Transportation of Brattleboro, in Dummerston, Mark Pickering is the district manager. He should probably be able to speak to what the state's policy or protocol is. In terms of my department, we look at it from the perspective that a crime has occurred. If it's an act of vandalism, it doesn't matter what the message is. It could be any message whatsoever that is vandalism. There's damage to property. That is a crime. If it is also depicting some form of hate-related speech or communication, there's a hate crime enhancement that's on top of that. It's a separate statute, but in and of itself, it is not a chargeable crime. It's an enhancement to any other crime. So we have to first identify the first crime that it then would enhance. So it's a building block. Our protocol with vandalism is pretty straightforward. As any investigation, we will attempt to identify any witnesses, attempt to identify any evidence that we can. The second part is to notify the owner of the property, if you will. In this case, it would be the town, and recommend either cleaning or replacing the sign. We are also in a very difficult time. Not only did the town just have the storms that it's been cleaning up, and it sounds like it's actually doing a really good job on making headway on, but there's also backlogs in all sorts of supply chains, meaning stop signs are not available when we want them to be available, speeding signs are not available. We want the replacement to occur for our purposes because it makes supporting the enforcement of stop sign violations or speeding violations more difficult when they're defaced. So to our end, we want them replaced as quickly as possible, but we also recognize that it is, I apologize. We also recognize that there are other issues that need to be addressed and we don't understand the triaging of those.
Okay.
Hang on one sec. Can you comment on whether in the incident in Putney it was identified as vandalism that would be considered hate crime?
So I missed the first part of your question, but if I understood it correctly, was there indication that there was evidence of a hate crime?
Correct, in the vandalism that occurred on Carroll Brown Way.
I apologize, I have a puppy who wants my attention. It's a difficult question to answer. There have been several perspectives of what was observed on the sign, and when we're talking about red paint on a red sign, it also can lend credence to how we as humans encode and decode communication. So I have heard numerous things. I know what the photograph I observed, I saw something different than a hate image. I would say it was closer to a poor depiction of the human body. I have talked to other people just asking without priming what they see in the image, and I've heard about a dozen different responses, which include hate and non-hate motivated materials, letters, So to that point, is there interpretation to this? Absolutely. I can't answer if it's a hate image. I didn't see it in person. Certainly photographs, while we like to think they preserve images very well, they can leave out minute detail. So without seeing it firsthand, I'm not confident in saying one way or another.
Okay.
Can I make another comment?
Thank you. Yeah, Karen, well, Elizabeth had a question. Is that all right, Karen? If Elizabeth...
My question is, what kind of training are the sheriffs getting so they can recognize the most universally known hate symbol in the world, period? I found it I'm just concerned. He's saying it looked like a stick figure, or it looked like something else. That is the most universally recognized hate symbol in the world, period. So what kind of training are your officers getting to recognize that? If they're here 40 hours a week and they do go through that area, they must have seen it.
So to answer the question of what training, my office receives, first off, the same standardized training that all Vermont law enforcement receives from the Vermont Police Academy. That includes training around, in addition to many other things, hate crimes, about working with mentally ill, working with fair and impartial policing. So that includes a variety of things about different races, marginalized communities, gender and sexual minorities. So we work with a variety of different stakeholders from across the state, both inside and outside the criminal justice system, for a variety of things. To the point of symbology, we do a lot of training having to do with gangs, where symbolism is used both within fascist, neo-Nazi, Aryan circles, as well as in other organizations within the country and the state. Briefly, I would say we do a lot of training. To the point of the most recognized symbol, if you're referencing a swastika, well, I'm very well aware of what a swastika is. To say that you see a swastika, and to say I don't see a swastika, I apologize if we don't have the same interpretation, but the image I saw is a blurred red image.
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
So I just wanted to follow up and let people know that I did call the Brattleboro police chief, Chief Hardy, and talk to her. And she was not aware that we had vandalism on our stop sign. So I shared with her the pictures that Tom Goddard had taken Sunday, August 22nd, and the picture that I had taken Monday morning. And she also shared her picture with me. They don't have any leads either from their end, but the communication is open between Putney and Brattleboro now. And if anything should develop, we'll be in contact with one another.
It doesn't appear from my non-professional position that the same paint was used in the two incidences, but I don't know that. Are you aware, Sheriff, of whether it's believed that the two incidents, the one in Putney and the one in Brattleboro, are connected, or?
At this point, I wouldn't exclude the possibility, but I also wouldn't say that they are. There's just no indication at this point. We have very little information tying either together other than proximity time.
Yeah. Looks like Jamie Contois has her hand up.
I have a little one crying in the background, so I hope you can hear me. One of the things, I'm the former co-chair of the Equity and Inclusion Committee for the town of Putney. And one of the things we noticed last summer, starting in July, was racist graffiti and anti-Semitic graffiti showing up region-wide. Sometimes on the same night, we would see Brattleboro, Putney, Townsend, and Jamaica were hit on the same night. we started looking at statewide reports of anti-Semitism and anti-Black graffiti that was showing up in patterns. And so, can you hear me?
Yep,
Yes.
we can hear you.
Sounds like it's escalating. So one of the things that I noted was how important it was to coordinate. So I really appreciate, Karen, your outreach to Brattleboro, because I don't know if there was a pattern, but the swastika that showed up on the stop sign in Brattleboro, I thought happened right around the same time that the image showed up on our stop sign here in Putney. And so I immediately, even though I didn't visually see a swastika, I immediately thought it was a swastika and thought it should be removed immediately, because it looked like a pattern of what had happened previously with other hate crimes that had happened. And in some of our research about hate activity, I've been really following a lot of hate crimes statewide. The Attorney General's office is supposed to be tracking hate crimes, and then there's the Vermont Sheriff, help me. The Vermont Human Rights Council, the Vermont
Human Rights Commission.
Human Rights Commission. And so outreach to them is a great place to ask about hate activity, because we saw 11 neo-Nazis in downtown Brattleboro brazenly demonstrating anti-Semitic activity months ago. Weren't there photos going around? I mean, it's shocking to see the coordinated hate activity that's in the region. And so I think one of the things it's teaching me is that we need to watch for statewide patterns. We need to recognize the impact this is having on people who've experienced anti-Semitic and racist hate speech, whether it's written or verbal. We saw a lot of problems with the defacement of the Black Lives Matter mural in front of the school in Putney. And so I think it's just important for us to keep communication open, validate each other's experiences, recognize patterns within the state and nationally. And one thing that I thought was awesome was reaching out to other towns that were willing to give us a stop sign immediately, and because we couldn't get a stop sign immediately. And so I think it's just cool to realize how we can reach out to other towns and get support. And so anyway, that was something that happened, and it was really great. So I think we just keep working together, keep communication open, and look at making sure we're not turning a blind eye to what's happening.
Thank you, Jamie. I want to add to this, and I know this is on our agenda for later, but we're fully involved in it at this moment, so I think we should just continue with this for a few minutes at least. But I want to just apologize to the public. There were a series of missteps, and that sign, regardless of how anybody might interpret it, given the possibility, or from many people's perspective, the high likelihood that it was a swastika, it should have and was intended to come down immediately. A series of things unfolded by which that didn't happen, and I'm sorry. I thought steps were happening in a way that it was being taken care of. I think there were some miscommunications, there were a variety of things, but it shouldn't have happened. And I'm aware that many people rightfully experienced harm as a result of this, and I am genuinely sorry for that. And we will, I think I'm certainly learning from this process, and I think we always try and do our best, and sometimes it's not good enough and should be better, and we always will learn and hopefully can continue to do better. So that's
Can I add to that?
hopefully, yes.
So I just want to say, we did talk, and I don't micromanage my department heads, and I thought it had been taken care of. I knew we didn't have a sign, and I also knew there was some solvent that could have taken that paint off. And I didn't think to drive through there on Friday after my day of work to make sure it was taken care of. I have learned that next time I can call the town of Brattleboro or Dummerston and maybe get a sign. I mean, we don't have stuff like that in stock. I can call the state of Vermont, V-Trans as well, because I have connection down there. So I did talk to Mark Pickering and I thanked him. And he thinks that somebody from White River came down from V-Trans and replaced that sign on Monday morning a week ago. So I've learned some valuable lessons here too. And you're right. You know, if one person interprets something one way and it's harmful, then it has to be taken care of. So, and, you know, I'll take some accountability because it didn't happen in a, you know, more efficient way. And, but again, you know, I've learned some valuable lessons. And I'm sorry too.
I can assure people that I hope that it would never unfold this way again. You know, we definitely recognize that mistakes were made and should have been done differently, but we can't undo that. So sorry.
Can I ask a couple of questions?
Sure. Who's talking?
Dina.
Sure. Go ahead, Dina.
Okay, so the first thing that I'm a little bit confused about is, Karen, you said that you thought it had been taken care of, but at the select board on Wednesday, which was 3 days afterwards, you had talked about the fact that it hadn't come down yet. So I'm a little bit confused. That sounds like two different stories to me. I just would like some clarification.
So
the second thing is that I'm also a little bit confused about why, if on one hand, I'm hearing that an image of hate seen by some people is an image of hate, and yet we're still having a dialogue in this meeting about whether or not it was an image of hate. So I don't really understand. Those seem like they're in contradiction to me. And the third thing is I would be interested to hear what those mishaps were. Thank you.
So I can talk about the sign, Dina, because I did speak to the road foreman and asked if we could get that down right away. And Wednesday in our select board meeting, I did state that I talked to him, and I talked to him again, and he had mentioned that he had some solvent that could clean that up. The fact that it didn't happen, you know, like I said, I've been in contact with the road foreman since the storm, and there's been days where I don't talk to him at all. So if I need to be accountable because I didn't follow through with the road foreman, then I'll take that. But, you know, next time too, if I know I can just call the town of Brattleboro or V-Trans and get a sign, I'll do that. But, again, it just didn't happen quick enough.
So, and just to be clear, sorry, what?
It certainly wasn't a stick figure. That's the piece that Dina Gartensey brought up, and I that's why I'm here tonight. I'm on the agenda for something else, but I was appalled that that was in my backyard and that it wasn't addressed immediately. And there is no debate about what that is. It's not a stick figure.
I think there were, I don't want to disagree with you, Elizabeth. I think there were people who maybe for a variety of reasons didn't see it, I mean, including, as Sheriff Anderson said, who didn't see it as clearly, and I think that's probably based largely on experience and.
Which is why I asked about training.
Yeah.
And I think it's
Yep.
imperative. That is the most well-known hate symbol, period.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, hang on a sec. I wanna, so I guess it's just, I hear what you're saying, and I think part of the missteps were that, that some people didn't see it that way, and that was a mistake, obviously. And what caused that to be the case is hard to say. It wasn't, there are swastikas that are very clearly swastikas, and this was, in many people's opinion, less than obvious that that's what it was, but even the possibility that that's what it was should have prompted sooner action, obviously. So that's where that sort of step of the miscommunication and missteps was. Some people looked at it, and including, I believe, the sheriff's department had the opinion that they weren't sure that's what it was, and that's the communication that came. So, again, very unfortunate series of missteps. And then the miscommunication about it, whether it could be, we couldn't take a stop sign down because the liability, if then there was a car accident, that would be a liability, which of course is a problem, but it also might have been a fatality or otherwise, which is a different problem. And I want to be really clear. I'm not trying to excuse or explain away what happened at all. I'm just trying to, Dina, you specifically asked about what some of the steps were, and I think some was a lack of recognition that probably warrants or does warrant sort of further exploration and education. I think that the assumption that it could be cleaned might have been a delay, and then the fact that we didn't have a stop sign and didn't until a couple days later after this had occurred, that we should have found one and done it faster. Or at a minimum, and I think this is what I thought had perhaps occurred, and there was some discussion from, again, I think the sheriff's department, that maybe that this was something that something had been painted and then somebody perhaps had tried to paint over it to disguise it, and whether that was an effort to cover it from being what it was or not, I don't know. But again, sort of all of these things added up to a situation where it just didn't get managed properly, and hopefully we have really learned that something like this needs to be managed differently, and hope.
Well, there's been plenty of incidences in the town now, including the Black Lives Matter defacement, which I understand that it was pretty easy to identify who the perpetrator was based on the tires. And I'm concerned that we're not following through as swiftly and just with deep conscientiousness regarding our community and the well-being of the community. And I personally have felt very threatened by both of those incidences. The same night that Black Lives Matter is racist was painted there, the sign, my peace sign, that All Lives Matter, was spray painted with bitch in the exact same white spray paint. So, here we are in this lovely village, and we're dealing with some very nefarious characters and behaviors that were promoted, unfortunately. And we have to really address it swiftly. We cannot wait. We cannot even hesitate for a moment. And if our police officers don't know the difference between a stick figure and a Nazi symbol of hate, therein lies the rub. There's a lot of concern.
I wasn't aware that you had a sign defaced on that same, but I assume you reported that?
No, I didn't, but
Yeah.
In retrospect, I feel now every single time I have to report something, I'm not feeling that there's really a ton of follow-up.
Yeah, no, and I can't really one of the things, I don't know, is Sheriff Anderson still with us? I think maybe he couldn't stay. Do you want to comment? I don't know whether you could hear most of that, Sheriff, but the concern about lack of follow-up on incidents, including defacement of the Black Lives Matter mural and this most recent incident, my impression is that these fall into the category of ongoing investigations, and that maybe makes it tricky to comment on, but would you care to comment?
I would. So first off, I think it's important to know the image that we saw versus the conviction I hear from a member in the audience. I apologize, I don't know your name. It leads me to believe that you saw something we didn't. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, because I can only tell you the date that we received the report, and it wasn't a report of the graffiti, actually, it was a report of a person being stalked. Our investigation of that case led to the graffiti. So it's hard to say when you observed what you're identifying as a swastika and what we observed and anything that happened in the time that it occurred. If somebody tried to cover up, if somebody said, hey, I don't appreciate that, and they turned it into something else. At no point did my office ever describe it as a stick figure, despite that visualization being used. I'm not sure where that one came from, but I also respect that as a separate interpretation of at least the image that I observed. I did not see the sign before, actually, I never saw the sign. I saw an image of the sign myself, and my understanding through my deputy's investigation is that the image that we have is the newest, I say newest, maybe it's the oldest image that we're aware of. But we have been told by several people that it was a clear, defined swastika. So if there was an image that precedes what we have as evidence right now, we are happy to accept that. In terms of follow-up, I feel that we were very proactive in follow-up, especially around the Black Lives Matter, graffiti, the vandalism to the mural, the various paintings throughout the county. I participated in several vigils with groups of people to talk about how we, the Sheriff's Department, are working to support the communities who have been marginalized. I attended a variety of different public events and talked with numerous people. And while I understand that those might not be the broad communication to the town, it's not a Googleable event where you can see what was talked about. At the end of the day, I think that we did a lot because we recognize, the Sheriff's Department recognizes how important hate is and how we need to be willing to stand with the people of the community who say we don't tolerate. In terms of follow-up with this incident, I mean, we're still working on it. I'm here at the select board meeting with less than 4 hours notice, I think, to basically come speak about it because I understood that people were concerned about it. This is follow-up. And if there's people who have information that can help us, we want that information. If people call us when they see these things, we can act immediately. We can potentially, preserve evidence that we may have captured if we knew about it before. We may not have. I can't promise that because obviously I don't have a crystal ball. But our goal is to work with the community to stop hate and make this a welcoming and inclusive community.
I have a couple chat conversations. Do you want me to read them?
Sure.
Whoops, I need my glasses. So, there's no name associated with this chat.
Then it's not public record. Somebody who wants to say something, they have to identify themselves.
Okay.
It's a public and open meeting, and that's an important, very important thing for everybody to remember, and specifically in the realm of Facebook. I have been frustrated by the feeling that people are, there's a lot of discussion that goes on in Facebook. We sit and we are subject to open meeting law. Everything, every conversation we have is filmed. You're welcome to be here. You're welcome to participate, etc. When social media stuff starts circulating, there's no verification, there's no accountability, so on and so forth. So that's very concerning for me when it comes to things like this, and also a tremendous source of, honestly, personal angst, because we are all humans too. We go home to our families and to our lives and to our jobs. And when there is this social media sort of atmosphere surrounding in which there are accusations put out and where assumptions and judgments, as David just said, are made about our thinking or our activities, that's really challenging. We're here now in open meeting answering questions, and if you have concerns, please, and I know many of you are, and thank you for being here as well, but please bring them to open meetings and discuss them. Please do not spread what you perceive as real information without making it an open meeting about assumptions about us as a select board or how we function, because it's very upsetting. And honestly, I've been doing this for a long time, and if others want to do this work, they should come and do it. I would more than happily not be doing this. But it's really hard to find people who want to do it and are willing to do it. And I know there's lots of I've been hearing recently about a discussion that went on Facebook about the need for a 5-person board for more transparency. That's great if people want a 5-person board. I have said year after year that I would more than happily entertain that, and that I'm sure the rest of the select board would. And also I've heard that there's a petition circulating. I would say if people want a 5-person board, there doesn't need to be a petition. It just needs to be asked that we put it on as an article. We would not ask the public to petition that. It's up to the voters if they want a 5-person board. I would also say though, and I've said this many times, it's hard to fill a 3-person board. And if we want more diversity, again, I'm an older white guy. I realize that. I would happily step out of here if anybody came along who has a vested interest in the well-being of all the members of the community of Putney and was willing and interested in doing this work. So if you're that person, please come forward. And if we end up with a 5-person select board, great. I hope we end up with a lot of diversity on it and a lot of people that are coming looking out for the best interests of everybody. So I needed to say that, and I know it's sort of off topic, but it's really hard doing this work, and it's been, the last year and a half have been very relentless, and we try and do our best, and this is an instance where we clearly did not do our best, and again, I apologize for that, but we're trying, all of us, so.
So I want to say in the chat, maybe this is something I don't know how to use Zoom or.
Oops. Are you? Oh.
You got me.
There?
Maybe I don't know how to use Zoom, but I put something in the chat and possibly it didn't, my name's not on it. I don't know.
So there are a number of.
I see your name.
Okay, thank you.
Right, so do you want me to read these?
Sure, yes, please.
Because we gotta get out of the town manager's report and get on the select board
We have
items,
a
okay?
lot on our agenda
Right.
tonight, so.
So, Michelle, Alexa, I feel that it is irrelevant as to whether or not the image was subject to interpretation. I feel like if it has been interpreted as a hate symbol by even one person, it is, hang on a minute. Oh, I don't like this. Come on. It is, hang on.
It is a hate crime-based image.
You guys can read that?
Mm-hmm.
All right, can you read the next ones too? Because I don't.
Dina wrote, I did file a report with the Anti-Defamation League, ADL. They are waiting to hear the response from the town. Dina also wrote, Wednesday is not right away, it is 3 days later. That's the last comment that I'm seeing.
Thank you.
I mean, to Michelle's point, I agree. I think we, and that is something regardless of what anybody thought in this instance and how it panned out, it's very clear that that should have been responded to differently. And again, I'm sorry that it wasn't responded to differently. And I'm not trying to excuse that. I think it's just a reality of some of what went into why things weren't managed as well as they were. I was told, and I don't know whether this is correct or not, and maybe Sheriff Anderson, you could comment, but I was told that somebody had been told, at least in the first day or so, that the sign couldn't or shouldn't be taken down or painted over because it was evidence in a possible criminal investigation. And do you want to comment on that, Sheriff?
Sure. So with photographic evidence, and that's generally sufficient. We would ask that the town, if we're pursuing an investigation, we had identified the person. We'd ask the town for the sign if the state attorney's office felt that was necessary. I'm not familiar of a vandalism case where that was necessary, but certainly that's, I suppose, by an extension of logic that could be possible. That said, we would not instruct the town, do not take the sign deck as evidence. It's not how it works. We want a picture and we want the sign gone as quick as possible.
Okay, thank you. That's useful.
And we would prefer to take the picture ourselves for the purpose of chain of custody, but that said, we'll accept any picture.
My understanding is the sign is now in the possession of the state, so I assume it will be preserved as evidence as necessary, but.
And was it fingerprinted? Did they ask for fingerprints? So we talked about that before. I mean, somebody would have to hold themselves and.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I've been going back and forth. I don't know whether either of the other select board members want to add anything or have any further questions or.
First thing I want to say is thank you for fielding all this, Josh. And the second thing I want to say is I'll make it very clear that, and I think I can speak for all of us, that none of us support any hate crime. And certainly don't support any symbolism like that. I had family members that were in World War II and fought against that oppression. So I want to make it really clear that we're not the enemy here. And even if we didn't do this as well as we could have, our intent is good and we're working on doing it the best we can. So.
Yeah, I'd like to echo that. And, as far as the way that I handled it and the way that I was conducting myself in the meeting, I shared this privately, but I'd had a very bad week. And as a consequence, I didn't bring my entire self to the meeting. And so, although I was trying to engage as best I could, I feel like I could have been more articulate and I could have been listening a bit better. And, obviously the town deserves select board members that are always there, always present, but like Josh said, we all have families, we all have lives. Unfortunately, mine was not doing that well that week. And so I fell down on that, and I apologize for the appearance of not caring.
Thank you. Do others have questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Fairman.
First, my compliments to you and your colleagues on your superb handling of this meeting so far this evening. Second, I'd like to return to the item in the town manager's report about the landmark college Makerspace.
Sure.
It was mentioned that there would be a field trip to the Black River Innovation Campus in Springfield, which was mentioned as if it were something similar to what the Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation has. It is not in any way similar to that. It was developed with the help of Matt Dunn, who was a native and resident of Hartland, but used to run community affairs for Google internationally. And I would suggest anyone who'd like to know more, Google Black River Innovation Campus. They have an excellent website explaining what they're up to there.
Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Fairman, thank you for that information. That was off topic to the subject we were on, and thank you for adding that, but I want to make sure we come back to our discussion to make sure if anybody else has other questions or comments, they have that opportunity. I don't see hands raised. If anybody would like to voice something, please do so now. Otherwise, I think we will try to move on.
Austin.
Yeah, I was hoping somebody else would speak to this, but I would like to know, it seems to me that both the delay in dealing with this, the looseness that it was dealt with, as well as that question of, the need to question whether or not it was hate speech as opposed to just accepting that it was hate speech, is a real indication that more education is needed. And I would like to know what the town and the select board are doing to follow through on educating themselves better about anti-Semitism so that these kinds of questions don't, happen again, and so that this is dealt with in a clearer way in the future. Thank you.
Well, I have to say that on our agenda, we are still trying to stand up an equity and inclusion committee. And I have high hopes that that group of people will be able to identify areas where the town needs to improve, as well as finding resources for training and other resources.
This is Swift. I'm just wanting to echo what Dina is saying and just identifying the possibility and the curiosity of what might be potential in where we can, the gaps, and just witnessing the piece of how much effort goes in when we don't have an equity and inclusion committee of like, okay, this is a lot. And just as someone that has been in touch with a lot of you in this moment of witnessing, like, okay, this is why we have a whole committee and not that can really hold the weight of all of this and do it as a team and do it together and in real time, and want to do that in the follow-up and in the next steps with education and in real time for, hopefully this won't happen again, but we all know it may. So thanks.
Thank you.
All right, on that note.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Not an easy conversation. Not a situation any of us wants to sort of face as a reality in our town or anywhere, and so it's really important that we have these conversations and that we do learn from both these conversations and try to figure out how to educate ourselves better. So we are working towards that, but thank you all for participating.
Thank you, Sheriff Anderson.
Yes, and thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
All right, and I don't think, Sheriff, that I think we covered what we needed to with you, so you can probably go back to your dog and your family and others in the background.
Thank you very much, and certainly by all means, if anybody would like to speak further, they can reach me at my office in the future.
Thank you. All right, so I believe that you're done, Karen?
I am done.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
Kathleen, we are going to move on to select board items,
Thank you
and
for your patience.
first on our agenda is Kathleen Bartlett, who I know that this topic, at least Karen and I had this conversation, so I'm aware, but please just tell us what you're thinking about.
And I asked if I could move up closer.
Absolutely,
Yes.
yeah, please.
Yep. You can have this chair if you'd like.
I'll carry my chair. First of all, thanks a lot.
Do you want to rotate just a little? Is that
That'd be great.
You're missing your chance to be a
It'll be-
TV star,
Yeah.
You can have this seat if you want. You want to have this
Sure.
seat?
So thanks a lot for your time, for including me on this agenda, but also for the time you give to the community. It's deeply appreciated in my house. So I just want to say that
Thank you.
first.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Secondly, I thought I would be here with some neighbors, but apparently, I don't know why you're not here.
Didn't work out.
So I spoke to all the neighbors. The issue is traffic and speed on Old Route 5 from Main Street to Carroll Brown Way, the infamous stop sign. I spoke to everybody on the flat there, and so I'm representing each one except the Gaddises who are moving
Right.
next week. So the problem is, since Carroll Brown Way was put in years ago, of course the traffic's increased. But now it's like Main Street. It's speeding way above what's posted, and what's posted you can't even see. It faces the Stead House. If you look at it's really at an angle and it's behind trees. So even I didn't know it was posted. So that's
I've
one.
never even seen the
Excuse
sign.
me?
I don't think I've ever even seen the sign.
Well, I know the dog poop sign is
Okay.
pick up your dog trash. But anyway, so that's a problem. I know that I believe Main Street is 30 miles an hour,
Yes.
and the residential area of Old Route 5 South is 35.
Yeah.
So one request we have is to lower it to 25. So that's, I don't know if you can do that or.
We can. I believe so.
There's a process.
There's a process. The only other thing is because it's old Route 5, and this is
right.
sort of detail I don't know. Does state have any say in it still? I don't, is it a state road or is it strictly our road? And that would be a question
Well,
for.
on the other end, it's Johnson's Curve.
It's
Right.
true. I just don't know. I mean, just based on its name,
Right.
the state might have something to say about it. But either way, even if it is a state road, we can work towards that.
Thank you. So the request is to lower the speed limit.
Yeah.
And have the signage showing. So that's one problem. The other problem is the density or the number of cars and trucks, and sometimes buses, going up and down the road at a high speed, and there's no sidewalk, and there's really no way to put a sidewalk in from my point of view. It's a narrow road to begin with, and the east side, it kind of slopes down. That's, so I don't know if that would solve any problems. But we'd appreciate, because a lot of the walking traffic has picked up a lot, and I believe a lot of the people from the Putney Landing are walking with children and babies on children on bikes, and so it's even more traffic that way by foot traffic. So a suggestion I have, and I talked it over with my neighbors, is at that stop sign at Carroll Brown Way, if we could have a three-way stop. And I asked that as I was in Brattleboro and Cedar Street, which was a big speedway, they put up a three-way stop. And I think it would serve two problems. One is the speed, would break the speed down. But the other thing is, when you're turning that way, it's very difficult for a car. You really have to give right away to the person who's been there.
It's an awkward intersection.
Two people can't move at the same time.
Yeah.
So I think that's a reasonable solution if you're interested in
I
taking
think
that
one
on.
of the other things that we could look into is traffic calming. So speed bumps or curves or.
Well, and that certainly, I was going to use that expression because it's sort of the industry term, but that certainly would be traffic. I mean, even if it didn't end up being a full stop sign, if it was a crosswalk with signage, et cetera, I don't know. I mean, I'm not opposed to it being a stop sign. I think that would be a good idea. But again, sometimes these things are subject to stuff beyond our control.
Right.
So,
well, if it could be investigated.
Yeah.
Because I think a three-way
I think
stop
it's a great
would solve
idea.
both problems.
Yeah.
May not solve vandalism, but
Can't solve all
I know.
Probably not, no.
But I think, well, that's an aside. The other problem is I was out walking 2 times with other neighbors, and both times they signaled to slow down doing this sort of gesture, and the people got into a road rage
Got
situation.
bad responses.
One turned his car at the person who did that, which was a few months ago, and the last time the person rolled down his window and not looking, speeding and not looking at the road, but screaming swears at this other person. So I witnessed that. I spoke to a deputy last Wednesday night when I left the meeting I thought was happening, and told him these situations. I have to say I have not witnessed any more presence on the road, which I think I would hope would happen. In the meantime, before we get to stop signs and posted speed limits. So that would be good. And Karen had mentioned bringing the blinking sign that shows you what you're doing. Might help in the interim before permanent measures are taken. So
Yeah, that gets people's attention, at least for the first 3
does.
days.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Now, I mean, I don't know why there hasn't been more visibility on there. I mean, one thing that's a challenge on that road, as you accurately point out, is that it's narrow.
Right.
And so for a sheriff's deputy to sit on that road, they would have to occupy somebody's space on private property.
Yeah.
So, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, Kathy, but if they were interested and willing to sit in your driveway, is that something you might be willing to
I
have
have the
done?
lower parking area.
Yeah,
They would be quite visible, but
Maybe that would affect a positive change if they were quite visible.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, sure. So
Yeah, not trying to put you on the spot. sorry.
No, but it needs a solution.
Yeah, keep going if you, yeah.
Well, in the future, I know there's a planned development near the Putney, beyond the Putney Meadows from my home. And in the big picture, I would ask the town to consider a circle of traffic.
Wasn't that part of the discussion in the beginning? There was some Route 5 as part of that.
A circle of traffic.
Having a rotary, you mean?
Oh, no, I thought you were talking about a
What I
circle
mean
sidewalk.
is people would enter Old Route 5 heading south.
Oh, so a
If they
series
were
of
going
one-ways.
Down there, they'd go down Carroll Brown Road, but come out by the fire station. So it would be a one-way
There'd be one way from
on
Carroll
from
Brown
Main Street to
yeah.
Carroll Brown Way.
So that would direct all traffic coming north on Old Route 5 down Carroll Brown Way and back by the fire
It
station
would.
to go north on Route 5.
It would.
Huh.
I mean, there are, it's a big consideration.
Yeah.
But I think with a new housing facility there, if that's going to happen, it's going to just add more traffic.
Yeah, I think there's some visibility issues. I tend to go down that road there often because the left turn by the fire station is a little
Not
scary,
Right.
especially when I'm on my bike. So I'm not disagreeing. I think it's a good idea. We just need to make
Just
sure
a
that there's like
consideration.
visibility on Route 5. There may need to be, I don't know, a stop sign, not a stop sign, a light or a yellow blinking light or some indication that there's traffic turning left and right onto Route 5 from that road.
So that would mean the traffic coming from Dummerston going north would have to turn
Right.
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 I mean, it's not going to make everyone happy, I know.
No.
Well, if
But
that's
it's
the case,
really-
then it kind of means we have to, that junction right there needs to be.
That's like a whole traffic study.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's
Yeah.
what I was just gonna say. I mean, the most recent time that we changed the speed limit was just on the Westminster West Road north of Putney Central a
Yes.
handful of years ago. We lowered the speed limit from essentially West Hill out to where the hump is, past the
Yeah.
horse farm there. And we did a traffic study first to see what was going on. So we should explore a traffic study because that would help inform us accurately,
That would be great.
which would be good. And then also it might be helpful in seeing if and when that development occurs, what the change might be. So
that's just a thought for the future. But for the immediate time, if the blinking speed box could be there and if the sheriff could show some presence.
Yep.
In the meantime, the So the stop sign, the speed limit sign needs really to be visible.
Be made
And
visible.
if it could be 25, that would be a gift
Yeah.
to the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Not
So-
only to us living there, but the people who use it daily to walk.
Yeah, a lot of
Right.
people walk it.
And
And-
ride your bike.
Well, I am almost sure, and I haven't gone back to look, but way back when the first
Yeah.
designs were done for sidewalks for phase 1, 2, and 3 for the sidewalk, there was at least a drawing of a sidewalk there as well. And the reality is, as you probably know, the town owns the right of way, so not that we would exercise that without permission from the residents, but on the east side of the road, there probably is a reasonable way to do a sidewalk there as long as people were willing and interested. And I think that's how the drawing depicted it, because I can't imagine it would be on the other side.
It makes the
But-
most sense because you have fewer crosswalks. It keeps people inside on that inside loop, right? Coming
Yes,
from the
exactly.
co-op, right,
Right,
exactly.
exactly. Yeah, no, and especially, like you say, if there's more traffic out there, or pedestrian traffic, a sidewalk. So we should revisit that and see what was there and see whether it's a possibility.
Well, not being a civil engineer, I do know that most of the property on that, across the street from me, goes right down.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
Although, as we just saw, that's very much the case up here on what was
oh,
phase
yes.
3,
Three, yeah.
the Robinsons, et cetera, that
Right.
whole section, there's a lot of, so, there are ways to solve that
And
without,
yeah.
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 And also when the curbs were put in across from the post office at Catalpa Gatehouse, same thing, they worked with that, so it's definitely within.
Yeah.
And it would be a nice place to have a sidewalk, so I think that would be
I'm not
really
opposed to
pretty.
that at all. It just
Yeah.
didn't seem like an immediate, like it could happen as quickly as a stop sign.
No,
Yeah.
I agree, and it can't. But the flip side of that is, if we ever want it, we better start soon because they take forever.
Well, I know that.
So,
Right.
so it would be good to put it on the books sooner rather than later,
Yeah.
and then maybe someday it'll come to be.
Yeah.
So
that's it. I just want to make
Okay.
2 comments. One about the previous discussion,
Yeah.
if that's okay.
yeah,
I think any graffiti in town should be immediately addressed, regardless of,
Yeah.
I'm particularly, I hate
of course.
symbol, but
Yeah.
any graffiti. And secondly, the other problem on Old Route 5 beyond my home is the tire dump, which I talked to many town managers about over the years. It hasn't been addressed. I don't know if it's if the state can get involved.
The state was very involved, and ultimately, and we'd have to look back at but we had the state here, we had a tire removal organization come and look, and ultimately, the recommendation was, don't touch it. And because I think the determination was that it was likely to create such a large disruption, and then you're potentially, I don't want to speak without, I don't remember, but we really went through this exercise about 5 years ago, and the decision was, and maybe, Kathy, I can't remember, it may have boiled down to a financial decision, but I don't think so. I think it was the state's recommendation that let it be, and it's horrible. It's hard to imagine that's the case, but that's what I'm recalling. So.
Well, it also washes down to a waterway.
Yes.
And that concerns me a lot.
Which I know that was part of our discussion with the state, was getting A&R, and then there was discussion about having various testing done, et cetera, and I don't believe that was done, and I don't know, but we should
Well, I'd love to come back
reopen that
at another
case.
time when that's on the agenda.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, thank
you
you.
could let me know.
So-
Thank you very much for your time.
Robin Ekstrom has his hand up.
Oh, sorry. Hi, Robin. Go ahead. Or Mary. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
No, it's me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I walked that stretch on Old Route 5 from Carroll Brown Way back to Route 5 most days, and so I'm aware of the problem of speeding cars. The only cars that I've really noticed on those walks that are speeding are local. I recognize the drivers. That said, I believe that there's a lot of traffic on that road coming up from the co-op, because I see a lot of vehicles with out-of-state plates coming up from the co-op, looking a little bit lost, getting to the top of Carroll Brown Way, and I wonder if some of those vehicles are speeding. And a solution to that would be relatively simple, and I regret that I have not said something either to the select board or notified the state earlier. There's no signage anymore beyond the co-op directing people back to 91. There is a sign there that says 91, but there's no arrow. And if I saw that, I would assume that I were to proceed up Carroll Brown Way. I think, in addition just to speeding vehicles, it would be a good thing just to get traffic that doesn't need to be on Carroll Brown Way and Old Route 5 off it. And it might be effective simply to get that signage updated so that people leaving the co-op who are not familiar with the area saw a sign directing them to the left around Alice Hallway Drive and Alice Hallway Drive, sorry. And then signage at the end of that, which way to go to get back onto 91, because I think that is a frustration for people, and frustrated people tend to drive faster than they should. Thank you.
Excellent suggestion. Thank you, Rob.
I've actually given directions to people to get back to 91 many times.
Yeah, no, it never really occurred to me because
Because
I'm not looking for it, but it's a very valid point.
Yeah, it's very common. They don't know where to
no,
go.
it's true. And now that he said that, definitely. Well, I mean, you end
They
up
just
with
don't know
people
where to
trying to
go.
go out through the one way back onto 5. Go ahead, Kathy.
I'm sorry, I should have said this before, but the problem escalates on the weekend.
Sure.
And I know we don't have police coverage on the weekend, so
Which
that's
is ridiculous.
yeah. Well, yes, but it seems to me it's more of a problem Saturday and Sunday, and I think it is local people.
So, yeah. Well, I think between your suggestions and then Robin's added suggestion, there are a lot of, like I think you said, Kat, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit. So we'll try and harvest some of that fruit and see where we can go from there. And
Mr. Chairman,
yes, Mr. Fairman.
a friendly comment in this regard. I sometimes encounter Robin when I'm down there. I walk farther down, right down onto Johnson's Curve Road.
Yeah.
Heading north, the town of Putney at the town line does not have a speed limit posted, nor does Dummerston, northbound on Johnson's Curve Road. So people coming off Route 5, actually the law in the state of Vermont is 50 miles an hour unless otherwise posted.
Yeah. Good point. Okay, we will look into that as well. All right, does anybody else have anything to add to this discussion? I.Leon or David, anything else? Thank you, Kathy, have a good night.
You too.
Okay, so next, Happy Halloween Children's Event, Ruby McAdoo.
All right, so Ruby couldn't make the meeting because it got changed.
Okay.
In your packet, there's an email from Tom Goddard, the fire chief.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yep, so he feels that we could move forward with the event this year. What I'll do for the select board and give Ruby an opportunity is we table this until the next meeting. She can be here and speak with the plans that she has in mind.
Okay.
But Chief Goddard is okay.
Yeah, I
Shutting off
certainly
Kim
don't have an objection.
I mean, speaking as a parent of kids, it's been, the years that it's happened, it's been so awesome.
Good, really good. Yeah, no, I agree. Crowded and fun and
It's just been great, yeah.
Yeah.
And
So-
Ruby will have more information on the event for the next meeting,
Sounds good.
okay?
Good, thanks, Ruby.
Thanks.
Jones Road Land Development Request for Approval,
And I
Cleveland.
had a question, sorry. Are we talking about doing regular trick or treating? We're not talking about doing the same thing we did last year with,
Right, we are regular.
Yeah, we're tentatively discussing real trick or treating.
Do we want to read Tom's letter?
So Tom, yeah, you want to do that, David?
Go ahead.
Tom Goddard's response to Ruby's let's see, I don't see Ruby's
It's on the back.
initial, oh, there it is, okay. So Ruby's inquiry to Tom was, I spoke to Karen recently about Halloween and I'm going to be on the agenda to discuss at the next select board meeting. I wanted to hear from you about what you think RE Halloween in Putney. I think Karen has talked to you about it, but I'd love to hear confirmation from you. How do we feel about closing Kimball Hill as we did 2 years ago? I would work on some COVID safety guidelines, encouraging masking and distancing, maybe encouraging a one-way route, stay home if you're sick, stuff like that, but it could be a popular event. Even folks who are cautious might feel comfortable with an outdoor event. Here's what I'd like to do. Ask the select board to approve closing Kimball Hill from Route 5 to just before Sand Hill from 5 to 8 on Halloween night, which I think the response also included that Halloween night is it's a Sunday. So event would be from 5 to 7 and we would do a candy drive and all outdoor events. Our warming stations might turn into tents with hot beverages rather than an indoor space. If COVID takes a horrible turn and we don't think it is safe, we can pivot to a drive-through event like last year. Tom will have the final say. Tom Goddard will have the final say. What do you think? I'm going to start engaging folks on social media about Halloween soon. Now that the weather is getting cooler, Halloween is on people's minds. Tom's response was, good morning, Ruby. Given the present state of COVID and everyone's desire to return to normal, I think we will be fine to bring back our typical Halloween on Kimball Hill. Your thoughts regarding COVID precautions are right on track. Closing Kimball Hill to similar to past events will not be a problem at all. We can figure out the particulars surrounding this as we move forward. I think that, the one sort of main caveat to that, and this would be Tom's purview, is if the governor's office were to decide for us that we shouldn't do this kind of thing. And I haven't heard anything along those lines, but it's certainly possible. It does beg a question. I know that in past years, and since we were just having a conversation about signage, et cetera, I know that in past years, the alternate routes around Kimball Hill have been a little tricky. So I do think that's one that we need to put a little more thought into, just to be very clear, because it has been confusing and frustrating for some folks. So, but yeah, I'm certainly in favor of the idea. All right. Jones Land Development request for approval.
So we have Ted Cleveland and Jonathan Towes online. So Mr. Cleveland just bought a piece of property off of Jones Road, and he wants to improve the road so he can get to his piece of property so he can develop it later in the future. In your packets, there's a drawing, and it's approximately 500 feet. In the zoning bylaws for Putney, as the zoning administrator, any land development on a class 4 road requires select board approval before it can be done. That information is also in your packet. Because there's no right of way on a town highway, off the Jones Road, it requires board approval.
What do you mean there's no right of way? There is a, what?
So
we have a right of way.
They have no right of way.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So they have to build that road
I see what
up
you're
to
saying.
get
Yeah.
a driveway to their lot.
And they own the entirety of this lot that is in red, is that
The
correct?
blue.
Okay, so on ours, it's
Right.
2, okay.
Sorry, yours is not in
The
color.
lower half of
So
that.
the lower piece
Oh,
of that.
okay, sorry, I
Yeah.
missed that we had the
Yeah.
other one.
And
Yeah,
this used to be Pivar's property.
Margie's.
Margie, yeah. I also came across some documents that were recorded in the land records. One is off of Jones Road. The other one is Turner Trail. So there's certain conditions with a zoning application that have to be met. And one of the most important ones is that if someone is to put in a road, the town is not gonna maintain it. It's a class 4, so the town will never take ownership of it unless it's a class 3.
And in that case, it would have to be brought up to
Correct.
the Vermont state standard for
Correct.
a class 3 road.
And it would still be our choice as to whether or not we took over
We
the
took
maintenance or
over.
not.
That is
We're not
correct.
obliging ourselves to do the
Yeah.
maintenance, right? Right.
So there is another lot further north. They did the same thing, Benji Cragen.
Yep.
So they had to come in front of the board. I noticed too that the town manager wrote the conditions and then, on one parcel, and then the zoning administrator wrote the other conditions. So there is a base for that. And once we go through the zoning application process, those would be implemented and recorded with the land records.
So where is this in the process? Has this
So the
subdivision
first
already
thing is to
happened?
have approval from the select
To
board.
even do it?
Right.
Do the subdivision at
No,
all?
the subdivision has already occurred.
Yes, the subdivision has
Already
occurred
Yes.
already. Yes,
But they can't
So-
make improvements because they can't get there. They need
Right,
a road.
right.
Gotcha.
and they
Okay.
need permission from the board to do that. Including in the zoning, findings of facts for the subdivision for Pybar. It states any further residential development would require Putney Select Board
Yep.
approval for construction on a class 4 road. And then, in the zoning regs, even further, 501.2 right of way, it states pursuant to 19 VSA 708 and 711, those are state statutes, the Putney Board of Select People may condition their approval, if granted, by requiring that the lot owner upgrade the class 4 town highway or trail to a class 3 town highway standards at the lot owner's expense. Nothing in this section shall be construed to require the town to maintain the class 4 highway or trail once upgraded.
Okay, so that means that it's still a class 4 road, but it's a class 3 condition?
No.
No, it says we may require that. But-
Right.
No, but I mean, is that how that would read? I didn't understand that.
They don't have to improve it to a class 3 standard.
No.
Because we aren't maintaining, in order for us to consider maintaining any road
Yeah.
that's a class 4, it needs to be brought up to a class 3 standard.
Okay.
They aren't asking for that and we aren't considering.
Right.
They basically want to put a driveway
They wanna be
on
able
what
to
is
get
a
to the
trail,
Yeah.
and they can do that to whatever standard they choose, but we will not assume responsibility for maintaining that.
But they
So-
do need our permission to.
But they need our
Yes.
permission to be
Because
able to
we
do
have the
that
right-of-way
because
of the
it's
trail.
our,
Because that's our road.
because it's our trail.
What's
So-
that? Yeah.
Mr. Cleveland and Mr. Towles is on Zoom if you have any questions for them.
Have none of the site work is done yet at all. There's no septic plan.
You can speak
Very
to
good.
the
Is he there?
architect, and yes, they're both on. Jonathan, do you want to speak to the project?
Yes, so hi everybody, Jonathan Tiggs. I guess the issue at hand here is whether, I mean, you said it all, the owner, Mr. Cleveland, is looking to provide access to within his property. I was not under, I don't know the full history of the project or what's been discussed around this, but I have the impression that there was an easement to allow improvements on Old Jones Road, which is a long, unused road that's shown on the drawing. And I believe we were under the impression that this was an allowable improvement that he could do to give access through the thanks. Yeah, I've got the PDF here, so but that helps.
I can't understand the question.
To give access to actually a break in the wall that's about midway along the line there. It's about 500 feet up from the town road, I think. And again, I don't know all the details.
So
Do
they're
you guys have
coming,
other questions about that?
they're coming in
I'm also a
from
Putney resident, by the way. I
Right.
live on
Yeah.
West Hill Road, just so you guys know.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
I certainly don't,
I'm fine with it.
I mean,
Yeah, as
I
long
don't
as,
know-
as long
I
as.
don't know that road, so I can't speak to it,
It-
you know, I don't,
I mean,
They got a chore ahead of them, it's gonna need some improvement, but good for them if they wanna do it.
Right.
You know, the only thing I would say, and I'm guessing the answer is no, is there any reason we as the town would want to consider doing more work on this road to have it be a through road? And I think the answer is no, but
That's a good question, because it crossed my mind, but I would have to ask Brian.
that's what I would recommend.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, that wouldn't prevent this
Right.
from going forward, I don't
Yeah.
think. So,
I agree, and I've walked that road very recently, and it would need an incredible amount of work to do the whole, this upper section, not the section that they're developing, but this section
top of it,
here, just would require some.
okay, that's fine. I just,
Fair, Russ.
It's like the Turner Trail at the western end.
Yeah.
It's pretty gone.
So, Mr. Cleveland, I would just, again, reiterate, and I know this is very clear, but we would be doing this fully under your acceptance of the understanding that we would not intend to do any maintenance of this road for you, so, and that.
Yeah, it was my understanding that the existing section of Jen's Road that's already improved is it's the same condition, so they deal with repairs and plowing and all that, so.
On their own, yeah, okay.
Yep.
Motion to approve the request.
Yeah, I have my hand up. Could I- this is
Sorry,
John
go,
Fields.
yeah, sorry, John, go ahead.
Yeah, just, we're abutters, and we welcome the new owners. We'd love to meet them. I'm just following up on what you said, Josh. You said we would not be improving it to class 3 level. The owners could improve it however they like, or I'm paraphrasing what you just said. I'd really like to know what are the parameters and the limits. Does that mean they can pave it?
No.
Does that mean if they don't pave it, they can, how wide? Many neighbors walk that trail all the time.
Yeah, so.
And so there is a concern in our neighborhood. When you say that the owners can do whatever they want to improve it however they like, that has me a little concerned.
Yeah, yes, that's a very valid concern, and thanks for pointing that out, John. It's a good question. I don't immediately have the answer. I don't know whether Mr. Cleveland would like to speak to what their intention is, and I don't know whether what our role in jurisdiction over that is to limit it. I'm not sure, and we would have to explore that. But Mr. Cleveland, do you want to comment?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the comment, John. We are going into this project with full awareness that a lot of people in the area use the property, the trails on the property, and also that road for just walks and stuff. The goal of it is definitely not to do anything super drastic. Actually, JT's been trying to see how little we can do on that trail to make it passable. We're not planning on paving it or anything. At the highest end of it, it's going to be similar to the other driveways in the area. So there's no intent there to do anything major beyond just getting access to the lot.
And just a follow-up question. Thanks, Eddie. So again, speaking from the point of view of the many neighbors, will access to walk that section that you improve now be limited, and access will be prohibited? Or will neighbors continue to be able to walk that stretch?
By no means does it limit anything. We don't own the road at all. So as far as I know, it's anyone's able to walk on it.
Yeah.
Class 4 is a town right away.
so it's a town-owned road, so nobody could prohibit somebody from being on it.
Exactly.
Right.
Did you heard that,
Thank you so
John?
much.
Yeah. Is there a motion to approve the application for highway access for Theodore Cleveland?
So moved.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the application for highway access. this is located at, on Jones Road,
Yeah.
Town Highway number 59. Is there any further discussion? Seeing as there's no further discussion, no further questions, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, good, congratulations.
Yep.
Okay, so next on our agenda, let's see, Affordable Housing Committee appointment recommendation.
Thanks for waiting.
I'm really hungry now.
I know, we are too.
We can relate, yeah.
So we did receive a letter or an email of interest, correct?
Yes.
And
and Michael Maricki endorsed the appointment as well, or the recommendation.
Do you have any comments you want to add, Elizabeth, or I mean, we don't have specific questions in this circumstance, so I don't know whether you want to say anything or whether you want to just.
I felt like as a member of the village that it was really important to be involved in at least one or two committees if I can find the time for that. I'm really feeling like you guys have just been slogging it out, and the more engagement we have from the community, the more opportunity we have to collaborate and improve the community. And Karen actually sent me an email with all the vacancies, and there are so many vacancies, and we can't just be complainers if we're not engaging in the process. So I've been on other boards. This committee seemed like a good place for me right now, where I am, and I really want to help the town to develop affordable housing in a safe and thoughtful way in which the community collaborates, and that's why I'm here.
Sounds good.
Can you read Mike's email? I think that would be appropriate.
To the Putney Selectboard.
Yes.
The Putney Affordable Housing Committee, a town body appointed by and working under the auspices of the Putney Selectboard, is in receipt of a request to add membership from Elizabeth Harris of Putney. The current members of the committee agree that Elizabeth would be a positive addition to the committee and recommend her appointment by the Select Board. Respectfully, Mike Mulkey.
All right. Do I hear a motion?
I make a
Mr.
motion.
Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Fairman.
I was present at a recent public meeting of the Town of Putney Affordable Housing Committee, where Wyndham and Windsor Housing Trust gave a presentation about their Putney Village project, which is proposed for the area just south of the Putney Community Garden and Putney Meadows, at which the candidate stated unequivocally that she opposes that project, opposes Wyndham and Windsor Housing Trust in general, and appears to oppose affordable housing in general. Later that afternoon, although we had never met, she stopped me on the street to tell me more about this. So I would suggest that you ask her what her position is on the advisability of affordable housing in Putney.
Given that I am a partial owner of the property that is subject to discussion that you pointed out south of the co-op, I'm going to recuse myself from this conversation and ask either of the other select board members to jump in.
First, would like to say that I don't necessarily think that we should be excluding members of the public on committees based on their opposition to certain topics, because that's what democracy is. But I'd like to give you an opportunity to explain, I guess, if you'd like to.
Well, given the fact that I live in the village where a lot of the affordable housing is built up, I feel it's very important to have members of the village be participating in this development, and having a voice is imperative. If we're not doing it with conscientiousness, thoughtfulness, and understanding of what the village of Putney needs, then we're really negligent, you know, and I feel that I have the time and energy and that I want to be a part of the process. And I've actually had some very productive meetings with Wyndham and Windsor Housing Trust in which there are ideas for more safety and security. That's one of my big things that I'm concerned about. And I have not in any way stated that I'm opposed to affordable housing because there's a tremendous need for housing in this community. We do not have enough housing, but let's do it thoughtfully and conscientiously and with the overall safety and security of the village in mind.
So if I hear you right, you're saying you're not against affordable housing, you're just concerned about doing it well.
Yeah.
That's basically.
I think that's really important. We just can't just throw things up, you know, and we need to do it right. And I've had some very productive meetings, and I'm hoping for collaboration.
Well, I think based on your answer and the fact that Mike Murphy recommended you, I don't have an issue. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the appointment of, sorry, I've lost my spot.
Elizabeth
Warner.
Elizabeth Warren, sorry about that. Elizabeth Warren to the Affordable Housing Committee.
Warner.
Warner, and I'll second that.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded to approve Elizabeth Warner for appointment to the Affordable Housing Committee. I will just say one thing, and this is a generic statement not related to anything in here, but it is generally our policy with any interested committee member that they do need to be supportive of what the committee's endeavor is. So, and I've heard you say clearly that you're not opposed to affordable housing. But just
that's not. Yeah, I didn't mean it that way.
Yeah, no, and I just want to point that out. I mean, you know,
there's opposition.
That's why I asked that
involved.
question.
Yeah.
So you know, and also you know, to the point of, I think, Mr. Fairman's point, if there are committee members, and we've obviously had this discussion, if there are committee members who become unproductive on a committee, then they are subject to potential removal from a committee. So, but those are, again, sort of general statements, not specific to Elizabeth or this situation. So,
Prince, could I just ask a question?
Sure, go ahead, John.
I think Mr. Fairman has a question on the floor to Elizabeth that I don't think she answered. Mr. Fairman stated that in a meeting, she stated she was opposed to the particular project by Putney Meadows, you know, south of the market. Could you, Elizabeth, explain your reasons for being against that project? Thank you.
My concerns regarding affordable housing and the developing of the village are very clear. It's about conscientious, thoughtful development where the safety and security of the community is incorporated in the plan.
Mr. Chairman.
I just don't think that that's responsive. I'm sorry. That's a very general statement that all of us would embrace. But if you, in fact, believe that this project would violate those generalized things that we would all subscribe to, I think it's incumbent upon you to explain why you believe that.
I don't understand your question.
Somebody else needs, I need to.
Yeah. So, first of all, I'd like to remind the members of the public that you're supposed to be addressing your comments to the chair and not to individual members of the public. So that's one point. The second point is I don't think that particular opposition to a particular plan that hasn't even really hit the ground yet is a bad thing. I've heard numerous people who are very into affordable housing in the village even being concerned about that particular plan. So I don't find that that's a necessary obstacle, and I don't know that this is the forum to discuss it. I think if you have those concerns, your members of the public are allowed to come to any committee. They're all open to the public. And I just say if you have other thoughts, please get involved.
There's so many committee openings.
Yes, there are.
So do you want to, Jamie?
Jamie, do you guys have the ability to put your hands down if you're not talking?
Yeah.
Because it's getting confusing.
Right.
So Jamie, do you?
It goes down. It goes down after a little bit.
It does? Okay.
Hi, yes, this is Jamie Comtois, and I just wanted to say that I was really excited about the Affordable Housing Committee and the proposed project for downtown Putney. I was really shocked when we were looking for a house in Putney and realized that a lot of the properties that were for sale were between $300,000 and $500,000, and I was really struck by the properties that were less than that they would need $100,000 to $150,000 worth of repairs in order to function well for our family. And so we also had in our, I want to keep confidentiality, but I'm aware of several families that in the last year and a half have gone homeless who are in our community that through the work I've done through Putney Mutual Aid, that I have been working with them to try to identify apartments that people who are working full-time at average wage jobs that are available in the region can only afford $800 to $1,000 per month rent.
I-Leon.
And so one of the things that I just wanted to name is that I was hoping that we would have folks serving on this committee who understood the rigor, just the concerns around what it is to be in that demographic and how housing policy is developed versus those of us who are homeowners.
That's what the committee's for.
Yeah, Jamie, those are all valid points. We're trying to discuss the membership of a particular committee member, and we do have several other items on the agenda. So I think we'd like to move forward. I appreciate your input, though.
Mr. Chairman.
I-Leon.
I guess I'm the interim chair.
Yeah.
Mr. Fairman.
Have I been called upon?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I have just become a candidate to be a member of the Town of Putney Affordable Housing Committee, so I shall submit a letter of interest at your next regular public meeting.
Good.
Please
Perfect.
do. Thank you.
Excellent. I think.
What about Jamie?
What's that?
What about?
Robin?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. Yeah, as a member of the Planning Commission, I have to say that the proposed development is entirely within my understanding of what the town plan is. But I just today had a long conversation with somebody who's a resident of another community, Putney Landing, where there are a lot of safety concerns. So I think the addition of somebody to the committee who is who believes in affordable housing but is very focused on safety and the security of the residents would be a good thing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to make a comment about how democracy is dissent, and people will come together on this committee and work this stuff out. We're not actually here tonight to work this out.
Right.
We're here tonight to either approve or not approve a member to that committee. And like Howard said, if you want to be a member to that committee, submit a letter of intent.
Yeah.
And I think we should move on.
I think that's I think we should move on as well. So there's a motion on the table.
Right.
And it's been seconded.
And seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great.
Good job.
Thank you, I-Leon.
Thank you very much for doing that, Eileen.
Okay, so next on our agenda is resolution condemning all manifestations, and I think there might be some language missing there. But Eileen, would you like to present this resolution?
Sure. So, Swift and I sort of started an attempt to do something similar to this the last select board meeting. This is not in any way intended to be a solution to anything, but it will hopefully make it clear to the residents of Putney and surrounding towns that this board in particular does not accept racism in any form. So I guess I'll just read it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a resolution condemning all manifestations of expression of racism, xenophobia, discrimination, scapegoating, and ethnic and religious intolerance. In the year 2021, resolved by the Select Board of the Town of Putney as follows. Whereas there has been recent rise in racist, anti-Semitic, or otherwise hateful graffiti in the town of Putney and surrounding towns. Whereas symbols such as swastikas deliberately target a specific class of people and are meant to be harmful and aggressive. Whereas the Town of Putney Select Board desires to promote a tolerant, respectful community, be resolved that 1. The Putney Select Board condemns and denounces any and all manifestations of expressions of racism, xenophobia, discrimination, scapegoating, and ethnic or religious intolerance against any community members by any Putney employee or agent thereof. And 2, the Putney Select Board commits to recognizing and acting on harmful acts to the best of their ability to the extent afforded them according to statute. And 3, the Putney Select Board encourages the citizens of Putney to work together as a community in order to make Putney a safe space for all of its community members. By order of the Town of Putney Select Board this 9th day of September 2021.
So, make a motion to approve this resolution. I make a motion to approve the resolution condemning all manifestations of expressions of racism, xenophobia, discrimination, scapegoating, and ethnic or religious intolerance.
Second?
Yep.
It's been moved and seconded to approve this resolution or adopt this resolution condemning all.
Can I comment before it's adopted?
No, I'm just stating what it is, and then it will be on the table for discussion. It's been moved and seconded to adopt the resolution condemning all manifestations of expressions of racism, xenophobia, discrimination, scapegoating, and ethnic or religious intolerance. So now, is there any discussion? Elon, that would be you.
Okay, thank you for recognizing me. A couple of things. I want to just quickly recognize you, Josh, and your service to the community. Thank you very much. And thank you for stepping up to make an apology that things could have been done better. I think that's what's important. I just want to say that words like this are important, but we should all recognize that you have countries like Russia and whatever that have beautiful constitutions. So we need to really make it be about what. Not the words, but the actions. And so I appreciate, Josh, your following up, and Karen and everybody's ability to do their best, and then to see whether their best could be made better. And I think that's really what it takes, is an attention to what could be better. We all have room to improve, myself and everyone else. I just want to say I'm very much in favor of the resolution, but when it comes down to it, it shouldn't be something that makes either the board or the town feel comfortable by having made this resolution, because the resolution in and of itself won't do anything. It's our actions that will do something. Thank you.
I agree. Thank you.
I agree, and I tried to say that when I first started, and I might not have made myself clear, but absolutely, these are just words on a piece of paper, and actions are clearer than words.
I agree. I also think that a very important part of this process, and this is not the first resolution of this nature that we have approved, you know, one thing that I think we're all figuring out is that we need to be taking actions all the time, but we also need to be talking about all these topics all the time. So I think that these discussions are actually important actions that are being taken towards the effort of improving the whole circumstance across the board. But I definitely agree with and thank you for your sentiment with that, Elon. And I just think, you know, the more we can normalize these conversations within this arena, the more we're going to be able to have them, and the more we're going to learn what we have to do right in order to do better. So it's all part of the same process in a very important way, and it's painful sometimes. It's painful a lot of the time, but it's good. We need to be doing it. So does anybody else have any comments or questions related to this resolution? All right, so it has been moved and seconded to approve a resolution condemning all manifestations of expressions of racism, xenophobia, discrimination, scapegoating, and ethnic or religious intolerance. Seeing as there's no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good, thank you.
Do we have another copy of this to sign?
I have a clean copy
You
here.
have a clean copy?
Yep, so I will
The signers.
sign that and pass it over. So next up, sorry,
This stuff needs to.
you're done with those?
I'm done with those, yeah.
Okay.
You go.
Let's get
Conveyor
this
belt.
back into here.
All right.
Sorry, little logistics here. Selectboard to sign. Okay.
And that goes, I guess, in there.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so next on our agenda would be equity and inclusion revised resolution tabled from August 25th. So we have that resolution before us.
Yeah. I will make a motion to approve the Equity and Inclusion Advisory Committee amended resolution as written. Adopted. Adopted.
To adopt it,
Sorry.
yes.
And I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to adopt the Town of Putney Equity and Inclusion Advisory Committee resolution. Update, this is an update. Sorry. This is the updated resolution, isn't it? Sorry, yeah.
What?
Dated September 9th.
In the year two, yeah. Sorry.
Yes. It says-
'Cause
yeah.
it-
No, this is the right one.
Yeah, good, okay. Yeah, good, sorry. So it's been moved and seconded to adopt the Town of Putney Equity and Inclusion Advisory Committee resolution. Is there any discussion or questions related to that? Michelle.
Hey there, I may have missed my opportunity in public comment to share this statement, but Laura Chapman had a statement that she wanted to be read on her behalf, and she can't be here this evening, and it is in regards to the Equity and Inclusion Committee and does fall, I think, under the umbrella of the resolution. And I'm wondering if this would be an okay place to share that. I can read it swiftly and with the respect that I think it deserves.
I certainly have no objection.
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead, Michelle.
Okay, for public record, please note that I.Leon was not on the select board during the February 2021 events reported in this letter. To our Town of Putney Select Board, I fell in love with Putney the moment I stepped foot on this soil as a young teenager. I knew then that I wanted to make a home here and that love has only grown since. I'm privileged to have been able to serve our town and help create our Equity and Inclusion Committee. I feel so grateful that work will continue with so many great people leading it. To those that are making it happen, thank you. Moving on from the intensely stressful time that was this past winter is essential to progress. I commend the Selectboard, EIC Subcommittee, and all the EIC supporters for this. And while moving forward is important, doing so without repairing the past sets a bad precedent. The Selectboard is the only body of governance within Vermont whose duties and power on a local level stretches across all three traditional functions of government: executive, legislative, and judicial. As you know, that is a lot of responsibility and requires enormous transparency. Within open meeting law, there is a limited exception to that transparency. The Select Board is allowed to meet in executive session as long as applicable state statute is stated, and if any actionable decisions are made during that session, they are immediately disclosed to the public upon exiting session. I assert, and the camera footage supports me, that this past winter, executive session took place within the Select Board meetings in which discussions happened and decisions were made about the Equity and Inclusion Committee members. At no point upon leaving any of those sessions was a decision shared. As an EIC member, I received a phone call from Josh Laughlin, Select Board Chair, on February 20th, 2021, in which he described the Select Board planning to pause the committee. The decision to pause was not made public until the next Select Board meeting and had not been discussed publicly in any previous meetings. The February 24th, 2021 letter written and read into record by the Select Board was an official act of judgment against all members of the EIC. It was based on hearsay and inaccuracies. It was entirely created behind closed doors, breaking open meeting laws and not allowing for any one of the EIC to properly answer to it. That caused harm to myself and others. The Select Board later decided to remove the letter from the website, apologizing to some members of the committee. To prevent future missteps like the letter, I encourage the Select Board to direct and support the town manager in putting robust consultative systems and procedures in place that can support both the town manager and Select Board in making decisions related to appointed officials and town staff. I also urge the Select Board to remember the transparency they owe our community and our committees when going into future executive sessions. Furthermore, I encourage the Select Board to hold the EIC to the same standards as you do all other town committees. Appoint members of the EIC in the same spirit that you have in recent history for all other committee members at the committee's recommendation. Due to some comments I heard in meetings, it feels important to assure you that the EIC did carefully document all of our meetings and submitted minutes to town officials. Some of those were unfortunately overlooked and went unposted for quite some time. That has since been corrected by the town. Thank you for taking the time to hear me out and for continuing this challenging work. Respectfully, Laura Chapman. And I can post that in the chat so that it's on record.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Laura.
send it. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, we need a copy of it somehow.
I know, something.
Thanks, Michelle.
Okey-doke. Here we go.
And thank you, Laura, for that statement. And I think we will take that into consideration. I would have to address the question specifically to say whether I would agree or, I mean, I think vocally expressed that I don't think that open meeting law was broken, and I still feel that's the case. This was largely about the appointment of members of committees, which from my understanding is something that is allowable in executive session, so I would beg to differ on the opinion on that. But without doing more research or referring it to legal counsel, which I don't feel the need to do, I just will make that comment. So, Jamie.
I'm reviewing the language of what you're discussing now, and I'm wondering, it's in quite a different form than the last time I saw it, so I was curious about what changes were made to the language, substantive changes were made to the language.
This, I believe this is the charge in legal form, basically.
Yeah.
It's in the form of a resolution as
Right.
opposed to in the form of presentation of chart. I don't know what the
But
proper
language
term is. Right,
should not have
exactly.
changed.
It's the content, I think I would agree with I.Leon, the content I don't think has changed. It's the format of the
Yeah.
language that has changed.
Let me see.
Would you say that's correct, Karen?
Well, Howard brought up some comments the last time.
Yeah.
And I pulled up what the attorney had vetted.
Yeah.
To compare. So, be it further resolved, the second paragraph.
Yeah.
So Howard had made a comment with a specific purpose and charge. I struck that out, because when I looked back at the original one,
It didn't have a charge in it.
no, it didn't really specify, it was just like all bullets.
Yeah.
So I took that out, okay?
Can you say that in a different way, Karen? I didn't understand.
In the last meeting, Jamie, Mr. Fairman had noted in the resolution that I had drafted up, there was language in there that read with a specific purpose and charge. And he said there was no specific charge was written in the original September 2019 document. And when I revisited that document, it wasn't clear, it wasn't specific, Jamie. So I just took that language out of the second resolution. That way there's nothing to debate. Now you do recall the first one, correct?
You mean the first resolution?
Yes,
from
that
when was
created
September?
the equity and inclusion.
It's still on the website, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes, as far as I know.
So basically, what we're doing here is we're amending the original resolution with the specific charges that we agreed on August.
Yes.
14th.
Right.
24th, 14th, 14th, yeah,
Yeah.
whatever.
Let me just go through this. 1, 2, 3, 4. So the fourth whereas,
Which is the
First one on
Second
the
one.
second page.
second one on the second
on the
page,
second
right.
That's the
So,
whereas?
Anyway, whereas what?
yeah, so the second sentence, or it's not even a full sentence, and in the state of Vermont, and to identify and compile resources available was taken out. And the only real other thing is in the next whereas, and this was a change made by the legal counsel. The sentence that starts, these trainings must focus on, in there it stated these trainings must have the purpose of. So have the purpose of was struck out. So the sentence reads, these trainings must focus on supporting an equitable and inclusive environment in Putney. And then I changed the IE and I made it consistent and made it for an example. And that's about it.
So again, very, very little substantive change.
Right.
Really just language change, both for reasons of legal and or clarity issues.
Right.
Thank you for going through that, Karen. I appreciate the thoroughness of reviewing that.
So I
You're
read this
welcome.
over and I did not see anything that, veered this in a different direction.
No,
from
I
what we
agree.
approved,
I
so
think it's a,
comfortable with it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Is it okay to call attention to the name of the committee?
Equity and Inclusion Advisory Committee.
Yes, I'm Ellen Adon. I just wanted to say I was surprised that I saw that word, and then I learned that all of the committees are now called advisory committees.
Not all.
So that, I thought it was new to me, and maybe it's new to some of the members of the committees. It should be just made very clear that these are all advisory committees across the board. I thought it was kind of gilding the lily because it's very obvious from all of everything in the resolution that it's advisory.
Yeah.
But since it is a useful idea, I thought maybe my husband suggested, because he studies classics, that we call this IAC, which is the Greek way of the EI. And I really admire that patience and seriousness that's gone into this. Thank you.
Thank you. We probably ought to also officially add advisory to all our committees if they aren't already there. So we should think about whether there's a step that needs to be taken, because they are inherently advisory, but that should be stated in the title of the committees as well. So.
And that'll change in the town report. I've already talked to
It's
Alyssa.
cleanup work that we.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. All right, so it has been moved and seconded. If there is no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. So next on our agenda, release of lien for the Warden Road Special Tax
Wait,
Assessment.
whoa, you skipped the line.
Oh.
We're not done yet.
Yeah, sorry. Review interest letters for Equity and Inclusion Committee.
Nice try.
Yeah, nothing Freudian about that.
Nice try.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see.
So in your packet, you have a letter that was received today, Josh, from Jamie Contois.
Oh, is that in here?
It is in there. So that just got received late
Oh, there it
tonight,
is.
so
It's right in front of me.
you may need a couple minutes to. And then there's the interest letters for the committee.
Well, I would say, given the length of Jamie's letter, we probably, given that we didn't have it in advance, we should table that for right now and look at the
It's
other.
related to the membership,
I
the interest letters.
Oh, okay.
do we need to read this into the record, or should we?
Yes.
So we'll read the whole thing.
Or it's available. I'm
All right, so-
not sure we need to read this into the, I think we could read the pertinent paragraph perhaps
Yeah.
related to this specific discussion.
Yeah.
Can we take a 2-minute break? I'm gonna go.
We can. We're gonna take a very short bio break if that's okay with everybody. I'm gonna grab a glass of water. David's gonna sing and dance and entertain.
All right.
Don't get me started.
All right, so that was a little longer than 2 minutes. Our apologies. There were
There's a line for the bathroom.
multiple needs. But in having a few minutes to review, it's clear that Jamie's letter is germane to topics we've been discussing, and I.Leon is willing to read it into the
Want me to read
record.
it? Okay. Okay.
Would Jamie like to read it?
Actually, Jamie, do you want to read it, or would you prefer that one of us reads it?
I'm happy to read it.
Okay,
All right.
sounds good.
Dear Town of Putney Select Board, or I should say I'm Jamie Comtois from Putney. I wanted to thank the Equity Subcommittee for its work updating the charges of the Equity Inclusion Committee, the EIC, and the recent passage of those updates by the Select Board. I appreciate the work that has been done over the summer and the call for community members to serve on this committee. I love our town and our community. I am committed to supporting equity and inclusion work in our town as we work to make our community a more safe, welcoming place for all of us, and expand transparency and trust in our community as we work together. I served on the Founding Equity Committee from the fall of 2019 to March 24th of this year. I'm grateful for the work we began in January and February of this year, the Equity Committee and the Select Board, as we sat together in joint trainings to explore bias and to create a shared framework for diversity, equity, and inclusion work in Putney. This work is documented on the town website page for the Equity Committee within the minutes and additional document links. In February, I was surprised by the then Select Board's quick transition from training and work plan development with the Equity Inclusion Committee to a letter presented to the public accusing the Equity Committee of wrongdoing. The EIC was not invited to respond to accusations in any public way or within an executive session, especially at the time when our town is asking community members to serve on committees. It seems counter to the request to remove 5 committee members after the majority of us had expressed interest in continuing with the committee. I believe it's important when working to address bias at a community, individual, or institutional level that we keep communication open and transparent, that we speak with each other, hear each other out, and invite each other into difficult conversations. I finally decided to write this letter when I heard a Select Board member make accusations again about the former Equity Committee member's actions at a recent Select Board meeting. Equity inclusion work is harmed when accusations are made without giving those accused an opportunity to address concerns or share an alternative perspective. My hope in writing this is that practice will stop so that we can expand transparency and trust in our town's structure. Because I was contacted by the chair of the Select Board in February and told they would remove me from the Equity Committee, and later told that I was the person of concern mentioned in the February letter from the Select Board, I think it's important for the future of equity work in Putney that we speak truthfully with each other in public so we can be accountable to each other and continue to work toward building a community based on transparency, trust, equality, and justice. I write to ask that we continue to support equity and inclusion work in our community and be willing to directly address acts of racism, anti-Semitism, and other forms of harm to our community members when they arise. To do this work and restart the Town of Putney's EIC committee, there are some action steps needed. 1, create a space where everyone is welcome to work towards equity, diversity, and inclusion in Putney. 2, have shared understanding that we will hold that space with each other and have difficult conversations and have disagreements without expelling each other from town service. That the Select Board create a human resource process that is professional and ethical for addressing committee member and staff behavior concerns. Challenges between individuals need not be the reason to lay down a committee or remove all committee members. That if there is a discussion of legal retaliation, it is substantiated with evidence. That all committees in the Town of Putney be treated equally. For the Select Board members who signed on to the February letter accusing the Equity Committee of wrongdoing without process, work with area reconciliation and mediation organizations to create conversation and repair harm. That the Select Board publicly retract the February 25th letter passed by the then Select Board. Create a culture of collaboration and communication between the Select Board and the Equity and Inclusion Committee. Support town employees in implementing equity and inclusion goals, and an ongoing commitment to training throughout all departments to expand a sense of welcoming in Putney. That committee members not be asked to swear, to not talk to anyone in the community while serving on a town committee. This is antithetical to the goals of committee work. I believe that our democracy thrives when we speak to each other from diverse perspectives and beliefs with a commitment towards safety, welcoming, and reducing harm. My goal is to build a community where equality and justice are available to all people, regardless of race, color, national origin, religion, sex, disability, sexual orientation, gender identity, marital status, socioeconomics, or age. There are others beyond that. I withdraw my February letter of interest to serve on the Equity Committee because I understand from the chair of the Select Board that the majority of our 3-member Select Board will not support my presence on this committee, and I want this work to succeed. I am grateful for the time I was able to serve, how much I learned from the expertise and professionalism of our committee members, for the volunteer time and work of all members of the founding Equity Committee, and those that continue the work to address hate speech, review policies, support anti-bias trainings, and support expanding our understanding of how to be welcoming, safe, and just for all members of our community. Something I truly believe we all want for each other. I look forward to continuing to work with the town of Putney and with the Equity Committee moving forward to continue the important work of creating a welcoming community for everyone. Please feel free to contact me with questions. I am happy to connect. Thank you, Jamie Comtois of Putney.
Thank you, Jamie, for both your service to the Equity and Inclusion Committee and for this clear and concise statement. There's one thing I want to respond to, not relative to me, and I'm happy to respond to that if people have questions, but the bullet point that if there is a discussion of legal retaliation, it is substantiated with evidence. Any conversation of anything legal between the Select Board and Council is strictly confidential and would not be something that would be subject to scrutiny by the public. So, that to me is just one point that I have to be very clear about. There are a lot of topics that this Select Board has to address with Council and under advice of Council that are just not able to be discussed in public, and that's the way it works. And I'm sorry if that doesn't feel right to you, but it's just the nature of the work. So other than that, if other people have other questions or comments.
Mr. Chairman, I have a comment.
Sure. Sorry, I can't tell who that is. John?
Oh, it's John Field.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
So, following up on this resolution to reconstitute the committee and on Jamie's letter, I think it's confusing for many town residents to learn that 5 members of the Equity Committee were essentially kicked off the committee. And it sounds like it happened after this executive session on February 24th. And the letter, apparently, from what was said tonight, was taken down from the website, but it's critical that the town residents be able to see what these charges were that apparently were in this February 24th letter, and that be made available, because as Jamie stated in her letter, there was no opportunity for Jamie or the other 4 members who were summarily removed from the committee to respond to the allegations. Something which really goes against the grain of who we are in Putney, and transparency and just due process. So I would like a commitment that that letter, which led to the expulsion of 5 dedicated members who had stepped forward and given of their time, in the context of people of the town begging for people to come forth, 5 people were thrown off, and we don't know why.
Can I
those people were not
That's not right.
given an opportunity. So I'd like to make sure that you can commit to making that letter available to residents so we can understand this, and that those 5 members, should they choose, would have an opportunity to respond to those charges. It's terrible to be charged and not to have an opportunity to respond. It's very distressing.
So
the letter was public. It was read in public. It's of public record. It was requested that it was taken down from the website, and we did that, but it is definitely a public record. It's available, John, to anybody who wants to see it. I also want to be absolutely clear. All of those 5 members who were not summarily removed from a committee, but whose terms had expired, while we happened to be in the midst of discussing how to proceed with this committee and appointments to it, that's the context of that, John. So there was no summarily removal. It just was in the time frame of where we were on committee work, etc. It can be characterized differently, and if you want that letter, it is absolutely available to you. And if we need to have further discussion about that, that's fine. I think that my effort was to try to keep the work that needed to be done moving forward without creating any legal jeopardy for the town. This was under advice of counsel in executive session, and it was absolutely, those records, because they're with counsel, are not available to the public, and I'm sorry, and we can explore that further if you choose to, but I think you're mischaracterizing what happened. So there was a statement that was read by then a select board member,
Right.
Barra McNeil, and that's available. So if you want to follow up, John, you're welcome to, but I don't think that's a fair characterization of what occurred.
it's
I
also,
apologize if it's not a fair characterization. It is confusing, to say the least, to an outside person who's not in the loop, so to speak. But in Jamie's letter, she says she is withdrawing her letter of interest to serve because she understands that you, the chair, that the majority of the 3 members will not support her presence. I think it's a tremendous loss to our town, not only that Jamie has not been supported in wanting to serve on this committee after having served for almost 2 years, but that the other 4 serving members who worked hard are not being invited to,
John, they have been invited to submit letters of interest if they want to, and some of them have, and some of them have chosen not to. So again, a mischaracterization of what happened.
So is Jamie incorrect when she writes in the letter that she understands from the chair that the majority of the 3 members will not support her? Is that is Jamie's statement there accurate or inaccurate?
It's accurate.
Okay, well, then I guess I would just repeat that it's a tremendous loss for the town for someone who has given this kind of time and dedication to not be supported by our select board, which represents our town. I think you will find that many town residents feel extremely sad and confused about this turn of events. And I would hope that the select board would reconsider their lack of support for Jamie, and I don't know who else they don't support, who formerly served on the committee. But we want to be supporting people who have a history of pushing forward inclusion and equity, not pushing them away, and then not giving them an opportunity to explain in a public forum their side of the story. It's extremely distressing, Judge.
I'm not going to comment further, John, because there's There's a lot of information that I'm not going to comment further. I mean, I see Fletcher has his hand up, and Fletcher, I don't know whether you want to try and further ask a similar question, but there is more to it than the clear, simple perspective that you're taking, and that's frustrating for me. On the opposite, I understand it's frustrating for you, but we have been subject to a lot of frustration for a lot of different reasons, and unfortunately, this was one of the outcomes. So, Fletcher?
Thank you for recognizing me. A couple observations. The minutes of all of those meetings leading up to that February 24th statement, none of them reflect that town council was involved in any of the executive sessions, either in person or by telephone. The only information we've received about Mr. Slason's involvement is the letter that you released that indicated that he advised you, based on the information that he was given, presumably from you, that members of the Equity and Inclusion Committee had accosted members of the town and accused them of being white supremacists, which he, not surprisingly, offered the opinion was improper. Then none of the committee members were ever given an opportunity to respond to that allegation. And in my conversations with them, they have all vehemently denied that whatever took place. That's the unfairness that I believe John is referring to, and it is profoundly unfair. It's what informs that February 24th statement of the board, which I appreciate you did take off of the website at my request, but you've never disavowed it. And frankly, it's hurtful. It was improperly adopted through a procedure that was utterly unfair to the committee members. Thank you.
So I'd like to make the comment that I hear everybody, what happened before I was on the select board is something that happened before I was on the select board. I wasn't privy to any of the conversations that took place in executive session or any of the training, so I don't have a good frame of reference. I will say that all of our meetings since February 27th, 24th are online, and I encourage the public to watch every single one of them in order, because there is a progression here. And that will explain a lot of how we got to where we got. We've rehashed that meeting several times now, and I see at least 4 letters of interest here for the Equity and Inclusion Committee, which I would really like to get to, so that we can move forward.
I see Jane Catsfield has her hand up. Jane, go ahead. You're on mute, Jane.
I wanted to re-emphasize what Fletcher has said, that I think that the injury happened, that you took information from one party and didn't have the information from the other party, and then that was forwarded apparently to council. And I don't understand how you can just take accusations without hearing from the other party. I mean, how hard would that have been? I just don't understand what the motivation is to not get the full story, which we try to do in all situations.
I will just say again that there are a number of details about this story that, for better or for worse, the public is not privy to, for reasons of confidentiality, for reasons of privilege, of attorney-client privilege, and I'm sorry for the harm that was caused by the actions that were taken. I think that it's a broader picture than I can relay to you, and I don't know how to go beyond saying that in expressing that none of this was done lightly, none of this was done without what felt to be valid reasons, and I apologize that that doesn't feel right to people. I guess I won't comment further than that. So, we have.
We're not a court either.
What's that?
We're not a court of law.
No.
And we don't get to do that, and neither are they.
But on a brighter note, we do have 4 letters of interest.
Yes.
So if
You have a new request as well?
we do?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, isn't that part of, do I have?
It's a brand new request, yes.
From
That's from Teresa?
From Therese.
Yeah. Yes.
Therese?
Yeah. So,
Is she on?
do you want, she was, Therese, yeah, she's still there, yep.
So I have 4 here. Is there
Do you want to read them, or do you want me to read them into the record?
Do you want me to read the whole
or?
letter? Yeah, so I'll start. So we have Ann Beekman. To the Select Board, I would like to resubmit my name for the Putney Equity and Inclusion Committee, thank you. We have Mark Thurman. I'd like to officially request to continue my membership of the Equity and Inclusion Committee. I have spoken with the current members and they agree that they would like to continue. Thank you, Mark. Swift wrote, Karen, I would like to continue to work with the Equity and Inclusion Committee and officially resubmit a request to join under the new charges. This has been an amazing process and I can't wait to continue and see where it takes our town. And then we have Therese, and I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce the last name.
Zuverino.
Hello, Karen. My name is Therese Zuverino. And I am interested in joining the Equity and Inclusion Committee for the town of Putney. I am a resident of Westminster, living and working in Westminster West since 1988 as an organic farmer and now as a psychotherapist. I was born and raised in Brattleboro. I have the time and energy to give to this committee in hopes of continuing the work of bringing awareness, safety, and equal opportunities to local community members. I have been working on my own anti-racism and continue to learn about social justice. As a therapist, I take seriously my ethical duty to be a change agent. I would like to become more involved by turning my anti-racism into action by joining this committee and giving of my time. I am reaching out now because I saw a post requesting new members. I was aware of this committee but did not think I could be considered since I am not a resident of Putney. I inquired and found out that I would be welcomed if I was given permission by the board. Thank you for your consideration. That's all of them, right?
That is,
okay.
yes.
Just to share that Mark couldn't be here, he tried everything he could, but he's in the middle of a program with students.
Okay, that's fine. So I would suggest that we approve these 4
As a group.
These 4 as a slate for the whether it's the new, I guess that it's just approving. So
yeah, this is the new,
under
the new charges.
Yeah, under the new charges, these are 4 people who have submitted letters of interest and who I had in our last Equity and Inclusion Subcommittee meeting the opportunity to participate in conversation with Therese a little bit, and I think she will be a good member of the committee. I'm familiar with everybody else who submitted a letter, and I'm certainly comfortable with advancing all of these 4 requests to be members of this committee.
Okay, so make a motion. Do I have to say each one, or can we just say?
Slate of 4.
So I make a motion to appoint the slate of 4 previously read into the record to the Equity and Inclusion Advisory Committee.
And I second that.
Hang on one moment. It has been moved and seconded to advance to approve the slate of 4 members for the new Equity and Inclusion Committee as adopted earlier this evening. And now it's open for discussion. Mr. Fairman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have confirmed with the Office of the Vermont Secretary of State that Vermont statutes are silent on who Vermont select boards may appoint to town committees. Vermont statutes are not silent on who is a town of Putney voter. Why should a person voting on recommendations to our town of Putney select board regarding creation and revision or repeal of our town of Putney policies, procedures, and ordinances that govern every town of Putney resident be a non-resident who is less qualified than a town of Putney voter to participate in governing our town of Putney?
So I've gotten legal advice from VLCT on the subject of underage participants, and it was explicitly stated that unless you are trying to be on a board or a commission that is basically specifically elected, you neither need to be a resident nor do you need to be a voter. So I don't think there's any problem with that.
I also would say, you asserted, and I don't know whether you have reason to assert, that this potential appointee would be less qualified, and I don't see why, just by virtue of the fact that they're not a resident, that they should be any less qualified. I think in this particular committee, a broader net and a more diverse constituency for this group is probably valuable. And it's also in the resolution that only 2/3 of the committee needs to be from the town of Putney. So I certainly don't have any reason not to consider this appointment. But thank you for bringing that up. Yes, Mr. Fairman.
I would simply add that anything that you decide to allow the Town of Putney Equity and Inclusion Advisory Committee to do, any other advisory committee of the Town of Putney also can do, because the same law, the law applies equally to everyone, and that includes any of your resolutions. So thereby, you are saying that anyone who would like to be on any advisory committee to the Town of Putney Select Board may join the committee, regardless of where they happen to reside. And I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad idea. I'm simply questioning what the rationale is, because what I said was, be a non-resident who is less qualified than a Town of Putney voter to participate in governing our Town of Putney. In other words, it is someone who has basically a third-party interest in governing the Town of Putney, and we say, sure, come on in, help us out. Can you make an argument for doing this?
I think we've well established in many meetings that these are not governing committees, they are advisory only. I'd say that anyone can submit a letter of interest, and the select board has the final say on whether they should be on the committee or not.
And I think also right from the start in the discussion about the makeup of this committee, going back to the old resolution, et cetera, part of that was intentional on the reality that there might be many folks from other areas that could offer tremendous expertise that isn't available to us within the population of Putney. So, I think that in this case, Therese, I assume, and my limited experience with her so far is that she is likely to be a productive and successful contributing member of a committee. So I don't see any reason not to appoint her. The other thing, as you will recall, is that if it turns out that a member of a committee is not productive and to the select boards, we can both appoint and disappoint, as the word might be. So, but I suspect that in Therese's case, we will probably be happy. So, but again, thank you for that, and I think it's important to remember. I'm certainly aware that we have had non-Putney residents on a variety of our committees in the past, and often that's been to our
benefit. We have one now on the
benefit.
planning commission because Andrew Morrison moved
Oh.
to Dummerston, so, and that's perfectly legal.
Yeah.
Right.
Establish that.
So, are there any other questions or comments on the appointment of this slate?
Doesn't appear.
Doesn't appear to be. Okay, so it has been moved and seconded to appoint this slate of 4 new members to the Equity and Inclusion Committee. I will just remind, as with all committees, this appointment would be through town meeting day of next year or thereabouts. Well, actually, the appointment is through town meeting day,
Right.
and then reappointment would occur shortly thereafter. Exactly.
Right.
So, if there's no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, and thank you to the 4 of you for your willingness, and I look forward to working with you in being the select board liaison to that committee. So thank you, and thank you for the work that's gone into getting to this point. It has not been small.
No.
All right, so next on our agenda is release of lien of.
Folks, I just there is some stuff in the chat that wasn't read just before we round up. Thank you so much for all of the work you folks have done on getting us here and all of that. And I just want to bring your attention, there's a few things in the chat that are still on that topic.
Oh, thank you, because I'm not paying attention to it.
Yeah, it's hard for us to monitor the chat at the same time, and it's also hard for that, from my perspective, to be part of open meeting.
I can read it in a couple.
Yeah, can you please?
So there was some joking, it got serious, so Dina said, anyone got a joke? And then Jamie kept it light and said, they're all inappropriate, Dina. And then Jamie was commenting about something about the scenario that was brought up and said a false scenario was brought to council. And then asked a question saying, Jamie Pontois, is it true that Laura Chapman also was also told she cannot be on the equity committee that she helped create?
She was not told that, not to the best of my knowledge.
Okay. And then John Field, common law through centuries embraces the right of an accused to be able to respond to their accuser. This basic due process was not afforded to the 5 members of the EIC who were accused of wrongdoing. This is shameful. And that's the end of the chat.
Okay. Thank you for reading those into the record. Okay, so next on our agenda is release of the lien of Warden Road Special Tax Assessment District. So this is basically old business.
Yeah. 1999.
Well, it started in 1999,
Yes.
but then it was I believe it was a 15-year, I think it was a 15-year term. So I think it was either.
No, it says 5 years or less, so it was $75,000 to be financed for a term of 5 years or
So
less.
this has been done for a while.
For a long
Yes.
time,
Okay.
but the lien
Yes.
was
The
never
lien has never
released.
been released.
So do I hear a motion to release
Yes.
the lien for the Warden Road
Yes.
Special Tax Assessment?
So moved.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can you sign that?
Yeah.
Please, thank you.
It's just here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so next on our agenda, grants and aid grant agreement, FY 2022, approval, designate signer. So the grants and aid agreement is money that we apply for, and typically, well, we have been granted for several years in a row now. We tend to use it largely for larger materials for road improvement process. Karen, do you want to elaborate?
Sure. So this is a new process. The state has taken over this, and we now have actual contracts.
Oh.
So prior, we were working with Wyndham Regional Commission, and we just get notification that, yes, you have the award, you have until this deadline to get the work done. We'll still be coordinating with Wyndham Regional Commission, Jeff Nugent, but the state is actually gonna be, they disperse the money, they're gonna, process the contract, so everything's legal, which I kinda like it better, cause now we can track, the state can track the money that's being.
And we don't have to.
Right.
Yeah.
So this award is for $20,200. The work needs to be completed by December 31st, 2022. I highly recommend that the board approve this, as the work that's being done has shown that it is effective.
Yep.
I did get a call from a resident on High-Low Biddy, and High-Low Biddy was done just a couple years back, and if they hadn't done the ditch work over there, they probably would have lost that whole road again. So people are thankful that this work is being done.
Now, we discussed this in the hazard mitigation meeting as well, didn't we? Or roads in general? not
Yes.
necessarily this
Yeah,
grant, but,
probably,
yes.
Yeah.
Yep, so the in-kind match for the town is $5,050, but the highway department always does the work.
Right.
So that is the in-kind that we give back.
So I would entertain a motion to approve the grants and aid grant agreement and designate town manager Karen Astley as the signer.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the grants and aid agreement for FY22 and designate Karen Astley as the signer. If there's no further discussion,
No.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good. VLCT voting delegate
I know, right?
delegate request.
All right, so every year town fair, VLCT would like a delegate from each municipality. Because we end up voting on like passive and VERB, which is Vermont employee municipal something or other. I just can't. But usually, the last person that was actually the delegate was Laura Chapman. So
Does it have to be a select board member?
it doesn't have to be, it can be, it can be the town manager.
Didn't want to say that out loud, did you?
But it
Toss the
also,
hot potato until somebody
yes,
catches it.
exactly. Not it. But it also doesn't require.
No, it doesn't require.
It allows us the opportunity
Yes.
if we so choose.
Right. So we should have someone as a
Well, I mean, if it
delegate.
doesn't take a lot of time out of the day, I'm willing to play. But
Sure.
You might have to go to the actual meeting, which is,
Well, you don't have to though, right?
well, you don't
And-
have to, but you won't be able to vote.
Right. The other thing is, I wouldn't be surprised if there is a remote option this year.
There
but I-
might be, I don't, they
but I
haven't
don't know.
quite,
I thought I saw, well, no, that was valid, never mind. I've got
no,
my
it's,
But again,
organizations mixed up.
I think just by us agreeing that I.Leon might be the delegate,
Yeah.
the delegate does not obligate her to go to that meeting.
No.
It allows her to go to that meeting if she so chooses, and therefore allows you to vote in that setting if you choose.
Right.
And if there's a remote option,
Yes.
you might want to do part or not do part.
All right, well, I can play for this year.
Okay, so I make a motion that we delegate I.Leon Chute as the voting delegate. You know what that
Sure.
is? Delegate for the VLCT.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. If there's no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Any other business that anybody would like to bring up? David?
No.
Okay. And I don't see anybody else weighing in on this. Lori Cartwright has, go ahead, Lori.
Hi, I'll make this brief. It's getting a little late. Thank you for your stamina. Thank you for postponing this meeting from last night. I would respectfully ask the board to consider the High Holy Jewish holidays in the future when scheduling. I know the meetings follow a pretty rigid Wednesday evening schedule, and you'd be in the clear for Yom Kippur this year, but maybe just in future years it's something to consider. And I really do appreciate the way the board has handled reviewing the recent mishandling and acknowledging any shortcomings, and I do just appreciate it, and I wanted to speak from my heart tonight. And that's all.
Thank you, that's appreciated. And I think we will, going forward, we will try, we very basically, we follow the federal holiday schedule, and I know that does not feel appropriate all the time. And there are a variety of reasons we might choose or choose not to do that, but thank you. We will take that under advisement, that request. And you're not the only one who has made that suggestion. I haven't, in my experience here, I can't recall it having been a conflict that was problematic. And obviously the delicate nature of tonight's discussions really were a very specific reason to choose to do other than our usual practice. So, whether I won't speak for the board, but I think it's something we need to be thoughtful about.
I think Brattleboro rescheduled theirs as well, and they didn't have anything specific to talk about. So I think in many years it probably won't even be a conflict.
Right.
So
that's what I'm guessing.
So it won't impact us, in terms of town business, it wouldn't impact us that much. So
I think that's probably true.
Yeah.
No, like I said, I can't remember it ever being, and I don't know whether that's because coincidentally it's never been a conflict or whether it just hasn't come up as one. I just don't know. But again, thank you, and thank you for the kind words also. It's
thank you, Lori.
As a Jewish person, I do appreciate it. I really just wanted to have that voice be heard, and thank you for listening.
Good, thank you. All right.
This is Swift. I just wanted to ask, is that something that can be done in the future? Can we change the meetings with enough warning?
Yeah, I think if we know in advance when dates are, then we did this time, so we can always reschedule.
And we can, of course, with as prominent a holiday or a celebration as Rosh Hashanah is, we would obviously be able to know in advance. I think the thing to do would probably be in future years, just look at, again, it's the federal holidays, but then there's also Vermont state guidelines, but those are not legal. The banks don't close and the schools don't close, et cetera. So it's sort of a little bit of a juggling act, but I think we can look at that, and as long as it, the other reality of it is that sometimes there's just business that needs to be completed on a schedule, and we have to do that. So that's something we have to keep in mind, but something to look at going forward. Might be a project for the Equity and Inclusion Committee.
Yes.
Right.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Fairman.
We had a brief exchange about the same topic early under comment on items not on the agenda.
Yeah.
So I just mentioned what I did not mention at that time, and that is due to constitutional separation of church and state, American governments observe federal and state holidays but do not observe religious holidays. Now, that does not mean that you cannot decide to do so, but it means that you are not obliged to do so.
Right. Thank you. Yes, and I the clear, and I don't know without having more data, I don't know whether this is actually an exception to what you're saying or how this works, but the fact that Christmas is a federal holiday would imply that boundary has already been breached. So, and I'm not saying for the point of argument, I'm just saying it as a truth in this country. Is it for right or wrong? That's up for anybody to debate. But
I think also in the spirit of open meeting law, not allowing members of the community to participate in meetings that they would otherwise be able to participate in if it wasn't a high holiday doesn't really sit well.
So again, something to review and consider in future years. All right, if there isn't any other business, do we need an executive session?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Alrighty. So I move that we enter executive session under Title V.S.A. 313A3.
And I'll second that.
So it's been moved and seconded to enter executive session under Title 313, Title I, Section 313 V.S.A. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor? Aye. Will we be making any decisions?
Yes, I hope you will.
Okay. Good.
Are you inviting me in?
Yes.
Thank you.